in Arizona. I'm pretty sure they ship to there.
They're not hearing you on YouTube.
Oh. All right.
They're in the chat, but they're not hearing you.
Okay, fine, no problem.
Now they are.
Oh, now they are?
I think. Well, I think we're coming back onto YouTube right now. I just want to make sure that we're actually there for the afterburn.
We're up.
Are we up?
Yep.
We back up? I think we're back up. The afterburn. What's up, everybody? Yes, thank you, Holy Cannabis Oil. Hit that thumbs up, everybody. Thanks so much. We are back, folks. This is Reefer Revolution Live, the afterburn. Blunt commentary on marijuana in the mainstream media. And we're going to take a look at, we're going to jump into the national block first up, of course, because we're talking about our action item this week was to send comments to the FDA. As I spark up. Got some strawberry crack going in these joints, so a little sativa heavy going today. Actually, we're thinking of doing a little Harlequin Tsunami. Maybe we'll do that in the Air Riser EQ. All right, everybody. Everybody's coming back in. Looks like we are live again. I'm going to make sure. Let us know in the chat.
I think we're up. Everything. I see things. We're chatting.
Oh, we're chatting? Okay, live.
Cosmic Lettuce. I just said you can certainly order CBD through the mail, probably from a reputable source like Holy Cannabis Oil or Haley's Hope.
Right.
Even though you're in Arizona, and that should give you some relief until you're able to get your medical cannabis card or Arizona joins the rest of the world.
It's not the best program. That's certainly.
Thanks, Paxable.
Dr. Sicily was
Hi,
talking
Mason
about that.
662, Obi-Wan Cannabinoid,
All right,
Kathy,
everybody jumping back in. Cool. Well,
Justin Gooder, Jilly Love.
We're gonna jump into the yes, we are. Live
Oh, Bernie's speaking in Chicago live.
That's what I heard.
We can't stream that now. We got to do the videos, or else we're gonna be here all night long.
Yeah, and then they'll shut me down. See, that's the thing. Bernie
that's the problem.
Yeah, if he's talking on a cable network, and I put him up,
can't do
they'll
that.
shut us down immediately. So
thing.
These little, I think the reason that we don't get in trouble with these news videos is because it is fair use. They're short. They're not the whole show.
Right.
Not the whole news show. It's just a section of the news show that has to do with cannabis.
Right.
And we're using it under fair use because we're commenting on how they're covering it. They even have a show on CNN about covering called Reliable Sources that talks about the media. So we're talking about how the mainstream media covers marijuana reform throughout the United States and the different regions. So this is an educational and informational show on medical and recreational cannabis originating from the great state of California. Subscribe, get notifications, give that thumbs up, and share as we get into our national block. We're going to move in right into the national block because, of course, we have a huge number of stories.
He has his own Bernie channel. Apparently.
Oh, really? Probably. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Either on Facebook, maybe, or something. Well, let's talk. Let's since Bernie's going live right now, let's start with Bernie. Bernie came out, of course, this week. 22,000 people in Brooklyn. Try to steal that one this time, guys. Speaking of which, there's a date, May 19th.
What?
Registration in New York.
Oh, yeah. By the way.
Yeah.
That's how it gets stolen.
Yeah.
You must register to vote in closed primary states. Like way ahead of the primary.
It's May 19th this year.
Now.
This year.
In a few minutes.
Yes.
Moments away.
In New York City.
So y'all
New York
who
State.
are living in New York and other closed primary states, I think it would be advisable for you to do voter drives to make sure that people are registered. Democrat.
We don't have to do that in California, thankfully.
We don't have to do that. I'm very lucky. I'm blessed. I'm thankful, and I'm not gonna.
You can stay NPP.
I am going to stay NPP. Yeah. If the D's fuck it up, it's all on them.
Yep.
But I am going to vote for Bernie in California in the open primary, but for states that have closed primaries, sorry, I'm totally fucking this up.
Well, let's get into a video, and then you can adjust your mic. Let's watch Bernie. Let's take a look at Bernie, and then we'll hear from from the GRIO, actually, covering Cory Booker and Barbara Lee's decriminalizing efforts with the Marijuana Justice Act, and then a couple of new folks entering into the cannabis space. So let's take a look at some stuff going on in the national news, starting with Bernie Sanders and his stance on criminal justice, which, of course, includes marijuana legalization. Bernie.
I am running for president because we need real criminal justice reform.
We have more people in jail than China does, for God's sake. We're spending $80 billion a year to lock up people who are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American.
And yet there are communities in America, African American communities and white communities in rural areas, where you have youth unemployment of 30 or 40%. Maybe it might make a little bit more sense to invest in those kids rather than in more jails.
Have you noticed what's been going on in this country in the last couple of years? Criminalizing marijuana or legalizing marijuana. And some communities are now moving forward to expunge the records. How many lives were destroyed because young people of color, they were being picked up and arrested for having possession of marijuana?
We need to end private prisons and cash bail.
I don't think that it is appropriate for private companies to be making profits through the incarceration of our fellow Americans. That's just wrong.
We have a system of justice for the wealthy, and if you have the money and the good lawyers, my God, there's almost anything you can commit and get away with. And then we have another system for the poor and working people of this country. We need major police department reform.
We need to end the militarization of police departments.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
What if all marijuana convictions were dropped from people's records and marijuana was no longer a crime? That's what Senator Cory Booker, Rep. Barbara Lee, and others are calling for with the Marijuana Justice Act. The bill calls for marijuana to be made legal at the federal level and gives incentives to states to reduce the impact of the failed war on drugs on low-income communities and Black and brown people most affected. It would also expunge the record of anyone who served time at the federal level for using or having weed.
Young teenagers getting arrested, saddled with criminal convictions for the rest of their lives for doing things more minor in terms of drug use than two of our last three presidents admitted to doing.
Senator Booker posted a petition for anyone who supports the bill to go and sign up now. Do you think it's a good idea? Check out thegrio.com for the link and more on this story.
We're going to turn now to a new trend in pain management, CBD oil. Actress Melissa McCarthy reportedly used it to help her with some foot pain while wearing those high heels at the Oscars. ABC's Kana Whitworth is in Los Angeles. And Kana, CBD oil, very popular right now, but a lot of questions about it still.
Yeah, Cecilia, good morning. Doctors are saying a lot more research needs to be done, especially because of all the hype surrounding CBD. Forbes magazine actually projects sales of more than $2 billion by next year, and some celebrity stylists are leading the way.
This morning, a surprising use for the highly popular CBD oil. Best Actress nominee Melissa McCarthy reportedly putting it on her feet to cut down the pain from her high heels. But what is CBD? Sold in oils, pills, sprays, even candies. Cannabidiol is touted by marketers as the hot new remedy to ease anxiety, depression, inflammation, and pain.
Muscle soreness, I think anywhere that feels like tense, tight, that you would want to relax a little bit.
The substance comes from the marijuana plant, but does not produce a high like marijuana. And despite its popularity and sudden widespread use, scientists still know very little about how CBD works and its effectiveness.
Because we haven't had a lot of clinical studies with CBD alone with pain, it's difficult to know.
Anecdotally, some people claim it works as a cure-all for everything from insomnia to eczema.
I started having really bad IT band pain from doing cardio like running. This has been great. Really helps with the inflammation.
CBD products are not regulated, so there's no guarantee what concentration or other ingredients you'll run into. Many experts say that CBD most likely won't hurt you, but they add there's no evidence at this point that CBD has the benefits some believe. The FDA releasing a statement saying, "We remain concerned about the proliferation and illegal marketing of unapproved CBD-containing products with unproven medical claims."
Are there potential medicinal benefits of CBD? Yes. Have we proven all of them yet? No. More research is needed. And I think that we owe the public, since there is all this hype.
So one recent study shows a majority of products ordered online by researchers were not labeled accurately. So you can ask for a certificate of analysis when you're buying this stuff. Also, of course, Cecilia, check with your doctor before you use it.
Do your homework. Okay, Kana, thanks a lot.
According to Business Insider, cannabis producer Canopy Growth's stock spiked more than 3% after the company announced none other than Martha Stewart was joining the company in an advisory role. Stewart is helping to develop a new line of product offerings for CBD and other cannabinoids uses for both humans and animals. Canopy's CEO Bruce Linton said in a press release, Martha is one of a kind, adding he's excited to be able to work alongside this icon to sharpen our CBD product offerings. This announcement comes just days after one Wall Street shop said it thinks the $1 billion CBD market will explode to $16 billion by 2025.
Hi, Andy. Mazel on your beautiful son.
Thank you.
Hi, Padma.
Hi.
Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz, what is your stance on the legalization of medical marijuana?
Yeah.
And when was the last?
In health news this noon, some older adults may want to consider using medical marijuana. That's because medical marijuana may help relieve some symptoms of chronic diseases for older people. A new study at the American Academy of Neurology's annual meeting shows that medical marijuana may be safe and effective for treating things like sleep problems, anxiety related to Parkinson's disease, and multiple sclerosis. Researchers have identified 5 risk genes linked to Alzheimer's. So the research project is paid for by the National Institutes of Health. It also confirmed that 20 other risk genes previously were identified as well. And genetics could play a role in whether a couple will have a happy marriage or not. Researchers at Yale looked at 180 couples and identified a gene variation. When at least one partner had it, the couple reported much more marital satisfaction and feelings of security in their marriage.
I definitely want to know. I think we have that gene variation.
Us?
I think it's anandamide.
Anandamide. Yeah, we're happy. We could have conceived if we wanted to, for sure. You need to have anandamide to conceive. Without anandamide, you will not conceive.
Apparently, that's what you learned today.
I learned that
one of the
today.
things you learned.
And I have no interest in this at all. But I really love the presentations that they make at the Society of Cannabis Clinicians.
Well,
guys, if any of you guys are clinicians or doctors or no doctors, the Society of Cannabis Clinicians is a nonprofit organization that's been around for 20 years. And they started as a little ragtag group of hiding doctors who knew about cannabis and were using it in their practice.
Right.
So these doctors are the shit. These people, and they have 20 years of clinical experience where when you're a member, you can participate in their members only forum. It's a closed forum on their website where you can ask questions to the community. It is fantastic. So if you guys are doctors or clinicians or educators, I highly recommend checking out the Society of Cannabis Clinicians.org.
I had a correction in the chat. I went into they have a new website actually, right?
They do, new website. Yep.
Website's coming up. It looks better and it's easier, and so they're making
That's what I hear.
improvements. Mm-hmm. And they're going to do more outreach. You're going to be involved in that. I think.
Yep. I'm on the outreach committee.
Maybe get them.
I just outreached to you guys.
Maybe get them involved in some media interviews.
Yeah, they need to get in that.
Counter the narrative, counter this narrative about the about pregnancy and cannabis use. And get some other facts in there that support not necessarily that pregnant women should use any drugs. This was one of what was talked about.
Yeah, that's the first rule is, hey, try to have clean, all the good things, but also cannabis is not the boogeyman, and it doesn't make for what was it?
Low birth weight.
Troubled children.
That's the latest one to this week.
The High Times propaganda?
Yes, about the Danish study about
that did not have to be printed.
Fathers and mothers smoke before they're pregnant.
I'm just saying.
Their children will be assholes.
That did not need to be printed by High Times.
Essentially.
Did not need to be printed. I'm just saying. I'm
it
going to
didn't. I
criticize
agree.
our allies at High Times. I think that that's reefer madness propaganda, and I don't think it should be printed.
And it's and that study actually has all the hallmarks of it. You know, with the smoking was involved as well. And,
smoking tobacco.
Yeah, smoking tobacco. Yeah, smoking syrup.
Not just smoking cannabis.
Yeah, and
anyway.
of course, and the size of the study and all that stuff. So it's you can lie with statistics. There's a class on it in college. I took it. That's how one of the math courses I chose to take was how to lie with statistics. Fun course. But you can totally do it. Curious Cannabis Connoisseur, herbs are drugs. If you don't believe me, you can just ask Google. That's right. Well, listen, it's a drug. When you recreate, you medicate. We say it here a lot. We know that we are affecting our bodies. We think it is a good way. Our side effects, it certainly does, what was the big study? The big study. The study that a bunch of people were pointing to that cannabis, it's true. Studies say cannabis causes the munchies. It's like, really? Who is doing that study? Why is that being studied? Does the right profile help people
for anorexia?
Anorexia and eating when they have cancer and they're
or dementia?
Or dementia,
or when you're old?
You find the right profile? Yeah, that's what's going to do it. But guess what else it's going to do? It's going to help regulate your blood sugar.
Yeah.
And put your body into homeostasis so that your blood sugar doesn't actually spike when you do consume those calories.
Yeah.
Stoners aren't fat.
True story.
They aren't really fat. It's true. I mean, I'm sure there's anomalies, but chronic users
people that are
not heavy. They have lower BMIs. Studies say.
Studies indicate. Yeah.
Studies indicate.
But again, lying with statistics.
Yes, garlic is an amazing drug. Lowers your blood pressure if high, raises it when low.
That's right. Hi, Jake.
Jake.
That's right.
Awesome. Thank you for that great drop of truth.
Yeah.
In the chat.
Exactly.
Kale. Garlic's a drug.
Kale. Food is medicine.
Food is medicine.
Cannabis is a medicinal agricultural product, as
That's
Representative Terry in Tennessee says. And Alexis Bortel is the one who turned us on to that concept.
We just talked about or saw a clip. I posted it again on I forget which page I put it out back on, but it was a YouTube clip of Paul Stamets on Joe Rogan talking about lion's mane mushroom and the studies that show it is a neuroregenerative plant, fungus, medicinal gourmet mushroom that you can grow, that you can buy, that actually might help with Alzheimer's as well, and cleaning out amyloid beta plaques, and it's at being a neurogenesis, making the myelin growing.
That's the mushrooms, right?
Mushrooms, yeah.
Yeah.
So these are part of the plant kingdom. Well, not really. Fungus is a whole different animal. Did you know we're closer to fungus than we are plants?
I didn't.
We are. Humans are closer to mushrooms than they are to the plant world. We split off from them. Fungus went one direction, we went another direction back before. And we are related to fungus. We are fungal entities.
Really?
Yes, and we're bacterial and fungal entities. That's what we are. Transportation devices for bacteria. Sometimes not so happy, but essentially transportation devices for bacteria and fungus, but with a little bit of consciousness thrown in.
True story.
And we're conscious people here, good people here in the chat. Sparking up. Ernest of Gaia is here. Turkey tail mushrooms. That's right. We were talking. Turkey tail mushrooms exposes the cancer in your body, so your immune system can go after it.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it does.
You guys, it's good stuff.
Mushrooms eat plastic. Did you know that?
Amazing.
Did you know that it eats petroleum products? You can put mushrooms on a pile of dirt that's saturated in petroleum, and it will eat it and clean the dirt. Mushrooms are amazing. It's too bad humans became such a-holes. Mushrooms stayed pretty good the whole time. But yeah, gourmet mushrooms are amazing. And so are the psychedelic ones, which the FDA even is finding to be truthful because they have now put psilocybin and its other sister, and it's psilocybin. I don't know how you pronounce the two different varieties. I only know them as psilocybin. But there's two types. But they are on the breakthrough therapy list now of the FDA.
True story.
They are being decriminalized in many places where marijuana has been legalized. And it's being that and MDMA are making some amazing leaps in being beneficial in many areas. So kratom is another something else that in the nature, the amazing natural plant that can be used something outside of the poison big pharma peddles. And every day we're learning about the poison the big pharma peddles without conscience, it seems. No regret at all. Which is, I don't know if that's amazing or not. But that was our national block, guys. We're going to move into our
West.
What? Want to do West?
No, you want to do the
West?
East?
I'm down
Let's
with West.
do the East. Let's do the East. Did I just fuck you up?
No, not at
Okay.
all. It's never wrong and never done.
Oh, you're the best.
So.
Oh, listen, I just
want
to address Julie Love before we move out of the national block.
Yes. Bring up some chats.
We looked for Tulsi Gabbard quotes from this week about cannabis, and she only has one fresh quote, and it's in an obscure print thing.
You sent that?
I'm just going to read it. In Circa. And she's introduced lots of stuff already. She has an A+. We talked about her last week when we talked about everybody's position, right? But Gabbard says that the descheduling of marijuana will help open up more research opportunities so that Americans have all the facts they need to make informed decisions about using cannabis for medical or recreational purposes. Quote, too many people claim that there are no studies and no actual reports that exist, Gabbard explained, so this is our effort to provide the facts to people to make up their own decisions. And that's it. That's all she's got that's fresh this week. Everything else is stuff that she said before. I wish that there was some live new stuff. If anybody's at a Tulsi Gabbard rally and gets that question in, try to record it so that we can have it put out into the world. Oh no.
Happy Pops. We're going to get into videos so
no,
you can answer that if you want.
It's fine.
All right.
Cool.
Well, I'm sure we'll come up with videos sometime for that.
But you'll find it, Julie Love. Let's keep looking.
We know she's an A+. We know she's all about.
Yeah, she's great. We love her. She's totally on the right page.
She's got other issues as far as we need to look at. But we're going to get into our Eastern Bloc, guys. This is the Afterburn. The Eastern Bloc. The Eastern Bloc. This is the Afterburn, where we look at marijuana in the mainstream media, and we're going to look at a couple of stories coming out of. We got one story, great story coming out of Delaware. We got Vermont in the block as they are ready to regulate and tax recreational marijuana, as well as New Hampshire seems to be ready to do so, while New York is cracking down on CBD before the brakes were thrown on with that this week. And what else is going on? A couple of stories coming out of New York, New Jersey, and a story out of Maryland where the prosecutor, the DA, wants to clarify. The Attorney General wants to clarify her stance on arresting people for marijuana. They're still going to do it. But let's get into our Eastern Bloc, starting with Riley, another 13-year-old cannabis warrior looking for relief, people, and looking for medicine from an amazing plant that never killed anybody in 3,000 years. Still trying to do it for kids, too, apparently, and it's not happening. 3,000? 6,000?
Since the beginning of time.
Sorry.
There's nothing recorded that
that's
cannabis has ever killed anybody ever.
Found in the caves of Palestine in a pregnant woman being used for delivery. Yes, it's true.
Cannabis. Yeah, we learned that today, too.
Cannabis has been used forever and when it's used alone, there's never any harm.
Yeah.
Here we go. The Eastern. We're going to talk about Riley. Here we go. See you on the other side, guys. And in the chat. This is Reefer Revolution Live. Afterburn.
13-year-old Riley Madler of Rehoboth Beach says medical cannabis helped her overcome life-threatening bone tumors and a severe seizure disorder when she was younger.
I saw how cannabis helped me so much, and I thought that cannabis could help so many more kids.
We've been following Riley's fight to make her medicine legal for other children in Delaware since Riley's law first passed in 2015. Since then, the law has been updated. Caregivers can now bring medical marijuana oil to treat patients on school property, and Riley wants to make cannabis more accessible.
I want any doctor to be allowed to prescribe medical cannabis to patients because right now only pediatric specialists can prescribe it.
Senator Ernie Lopez, who sponsored Riley's law in the beginning, continues to work with her on Senate Bill 24 that was just introduced today.
We just don't have a lot of pediatric neurologists throughout the state of Delaware. We felt it important to open up the prescription and availability of cannabis and have doctors of all classifications be able to make the prescription.
But that's not all they're adding.
Any debilitating condition that a doctor feels as though cannabis can be helpful for, now this new law is going to help make sure that it encompasses that.
Qualifications will be opened up for adults, too. Riley and her parents approached legislators with these updates after other families asked them for guidance.
Some were actually flying up to Colorado and coming back, and their doctors at other hospitals out of state knew what they were doing, and their children had no other treatment options available.
Riley's latest efforts come as Delaware Attorney General Kathleen Jennings wants to decriminalize medical marijuana even further, and as CannaCare Docs gets ready to open in Lewis on Friday. But Riley wants to extend her efforts to help patients in other states gain access to this medicine, too.
I want to speak to federal legislators and talk about how cannabis is medicine and it's not all just a drug.
In Rehoboth Beach, I'm Mallory Metzner for WRDE, Delmarva Zone, NBC station.
Well, Stephanie Bryan, the Senate approved this bill 23-5 today, and don't call it marijuana because every reference to this in this bill is cannabis. Now, this bill would create a cannabis control board, and the board would be in charge of several different things. The board, starting in 2021, would regulate any growing, testing, or selling of cannabis. Sellers would have to get a license, and there would also be a 16% excise tax. There would also be an optional 2% tax for towns that choose to host a retailer. The Cannabis Control Board would also regulate edibles and put limits on advertising. Now, these are all things that the majority of the Senate supported today, but not everybody likes this bill.
Imagine if you were a manufacturer and you were producing a product to sell in the market. You probably would not begin to advertise the price of the product that you're going to charge without knowing what it's going to cost.
There are 8 states who have legalized cannabis, and we're looking at those 8 states, and their taxing and regulatory structures are as diverse as anything you've ever seen. There is no bright path that says this is the best way to tax, the best way to regulate.
Now, others are worried there's nothing in this bill about roadside safety or educating kids against using drugs. Now, to be clear, this tax and regulate cannabis bill, it's only for recreational cannabis. It does not include hemp or medical marijuana. This is not the first time the Senate has passed a bill like this. It's actually the 6th, but it could be the first time the House could pass a bill like this, but we'll just have to see. The final vote in the Senate is tomorrow. We're live in the State House tonight. Renee Wunderlich, NBC 5 News.
Hey, thanks. It's been a busy day in Montpelier.
In Montpelier, several marijuana reform bills are moving ahead. The Senate Judiciary Committee held hearings this morning on a bill to relax eligibility requirements to get onto the medical marijuana registry. The change would eliminate the list of specific conditions like chronic pain or cancer to qualify for a medical cannabis card.
We heard so many stories of people that were able to move on with their lives after they got off of opioids and onto medical marijuana.
The Vermont physicians have concern that if you remove any list of conditions that would qualify for the marijuana registry, that we could see marijuana being used for non-evidence-based conditions.
The bill to expand the medical cannabis program may not matter for more than a year or two. Separate legislation establishing a retail cannabis market in Vermont by 2021 is scheduled for a vote on the Senate floor tomorrow, and it is widely expected to pass and then move on to the House.
A bill to legalize recreational marijuana is headed to the Ways and Means Committee after the House of Representatives passed it by 62 votes. Representative Rennie Cushing co-sponsored the bill that would create a commission to license growers, sales, transporters, and testing, and he says it would generate significant state revenue.
And it allocates revenues so that 20% of the revenues go to local communities, 13% go to communities where there's, other than retail sales, puts money in the drug and alcohol fund, and it puts money into the general fund.
Representative Patrick Abrami believes legalizing the drug would send the wrong message to kids.
These people don't understand how potent marijuana is today. It's upwards of 30% THC. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was 3% THC.
Cushing says he expected the opposition. The governor says he would veto the bill if it lands on his desk.
When you have something that's been illegal for 85 years, I think it's not unusual that there would be some resistance. But the reality is we're in a completely different time right now.
The Ways and Means Committee will now be looking at the tax structure if and when the bill passes.
And in the live free or die state, we ought to be able to create a system that protects consumers, stops making criminals out of people who do a benign exercise, and provide revenue to the state.
Now, the bill will be discussed within committee in the next couple of weeks. It'll be back on the House floor by the end of March. Live in Concord, Kristen Carosa, WMUR News 9.
Well, New Hampshire lawmakers are considering multiple measures to expand the state's therapeutic cannabis law. The House Human Services and Elderly Affairs Committee endorsed a bill today that could allow medical marijuana patients to grow their own supply. New Hampshire legalized medical marijuana back in 2013. Right now, more than 7,000 Granite Staters are enrolled in the program.
New York City health officials have delayed a ban on CBD additives to food and drink. Restaurants, cafes, and bars now have until June 30 to educate themselves on reasons for banning the cannabis compound. Many businesses were caught off guard when the City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene announced CBD-infused products could not be sold in city food service establishments. Officials cite a federal Food and Drug Administration ruling that CBD is not a safe additive. Starting in October, violators could be fined at least $200 and restaurant letter grades could suffer. CBD is found in cannabis plants but doesn't make people high. Matt Uris for CBS New York.
Part of looking into whether New York should legalize recreational marijuana will be deciding where all of that tax revenue will go. Governor Cuomo and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio have an idea for some of that money, which at least one lawmaker from Western New York isn't sold on just yet.
We are looking to ensure that adult use of cannabis is approved, and that some of the resources that are garnered from the taxation and regulation process of it are spent in communities that have been most heavily negatively impacted by the mass incarceration.
Nothing official has been worked out yet, but Governor Andrew Cuomo and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio have a plan to fix and fund the MTA, which runs New York City's subways. That plan includes using a percentage of the tax revenue from cannabis sales to fund the MTA. When people from Western New York are hearing that that's the case, a lot of them are not pleased with that.
Well, I don't think people should necessarily believe everything they hear. I understand the value of MTA in transporting literally thousands, millions of people on a daily basis to get back and forth to work. And similarly, if people can't get to work in Western New York or in Albany or in Rochester, then they can't invest in our economies either. So I think if there are opportunities to invest in MTA, there will be opportunities to invest in FTA as well.
This is all part of the budget negotiation process, and Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes plays a key role. She's been working on the Marijuana Tax and Regulation Act for the last 6 years.
I'm not going to get to the final goal line and have it moved in the interest of something that doesn't value the people who have suffered the most from mass incarceration. I didn't start out that way, and it's not going to end that way.
The governor's plan doesn't say what percentage of the cannabis tax revenue would go to the MTA. The budget deadline is March 31st.
Well, the political battle still continues in Albany over how to legalize recreational marijuana in New York State. Channel 2's Michael Wooten joins us now to update us on the fight over taxes. Right, Mike?
Taxes remaining the big sticking point, Scott. How much should cannabis be taxed? And then also, what do you do with the money that brings in? Here are the new developments that we got today. The New York State Association of Counties says the governor's proposed 2% local sales tax on cannabis just isn't enough. The association today urging lawmakers to double that up to 4%. We'll show you the quote from the group's executive director. He says only with sufficient funding will local governments be able to work in partnership with the state to oversee public health, public safety, criminal justice, consumer protection, and economic development. Now, keep in mind, the governor's plan has two other taxes as well. One of them is on the cultivation of cannabis, the growing process, and the other is when it goes from a wholesaler to a retail dispensary. So what we're talking about here is the end tax, what users would pay. That's what the governor wants at 2%, and that is what would go to these local governments. And Scott, they say simply this just isn't enough. They think a lot of the cost is going to fall on localities, whether it's county, the city, their law enforcement, their policies that they have as far as addiction services. They say they need more money to make up for maybe the unintended consequences.
So, Michael, whatever it is, it's a lot of money, 2%, 3%, 4%. The question now is, though, what are they going to do with all that money?
That's the other big battle.
It's
so
a
first
lot.
Is how much do you tax it?
Right.
How do you tax it? Then you have what do you do with the revenue that you bring in? We reported yesterday some downstate lawmakers want a good chunk of that money to go to the MTA, the New York City subway. Obviously, you have other efforts to spread the money throughout the state. That, we're told, is the other big sticking point, Scott. About a month to go until the budget is due. If this is part of the budget, they're hitting crunch time.
They say MTA, we'd like to see the NFTA.
NFTA, which Crystal Peoples-Stokes said she'll be fighting for, among many others. Yeah.
Michael Wooten tonight. Michael, thanks.
Yep.
It's a natural product from our earth that was given to us.
The relatively new supplement, CBD, raises a lot of questions with a lot of people. The hemp compound can be found in a wide variety of products that help people relax and can relieve pain.
CBD water, CBD gummies, CBD cookies, CBD brownies.
It's a supplement that you can buy at the store, but there are a few things to keep in mind before trying it yourself.
You're going to want to make sure how the product is manufactured, and also make sure that the person distributing it isn't going afoul of FDA guidelines on this.
Kim Pachetti is co-owner of 91 Lux, a CBD cosmetic skincare line in Buffalo. She says CBD comes from either hemp or cannabis. The most natural variety that does not get you high comes from the hemp plant.
If it's extracted from marijuana and even sometimes from hemp in a certain way, it can contain trace amounts of THC. THC is what shows up on the drug test as a marijuana product.
Quest Diagnostics recently found that people have been failing drug tests after using CBD.
Might test positive following the use of that product. And it's not because of the CBD itself, it's because of the residual THC that may be present.
And when buying CBD, you want to make sure there's no THC content. You can either look directly on the bottle or ask the place if they have a certificate of analysis.
And that will show the strength of the CBD and whether or not there's any THC in it.
CBD is legal in the U.S. and is not regulated by the FDA. It's a supplement and it's non-addictive, and many people say it can help with anxiety, depression, and inflammation. And of course, it's a great idea to ask your doctor before trying it out. Rebecca Thornburg, 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, thanks, Rebecca.
New York State legislators are still weighing the idea of legalizing recreational marijuana. One group is already looking to lock down its cuts of any profits. So the New York State Association of Counties says marijuana could be a big source of revenue for local governments and is pushing the state legislature to consider doubling the governor's proposed 2% local sales tax up to 4%. Now, the Counties Association says this would actually help cover the costs of things like education, addiction services, and traffic safety enforcement surrounding the use of marijuana. It's still unclear, though, when the state Senate will take up the governor's proposal to legalize the drug.
If people want to have this in New Jersey, then it'll pass.
But Republican Assemblywoman Holly Schapese says the voters should decide whether New Jersey legalizes recreational marijuana. She's sponsoring a bill to put a referendum question on the November ballot, along with Senator Ron Rice, a Democrat, in a process they hope will inform residents.
What is recreational marijuana? What does it mean for a community? What can people do if they pass a bill? What can local government do with that? And then once you educate them, it should go to referendum.
A recent Monmouth poll said 62% of New Jerseyans favor legalizing recreational cannabis, so it seems an odd gamble for both these lawmakers who actually oppose legalization to promote a ballot question that would legalize possession of 1 ounce of marijuana. But Rice believes the Monmouth poll question didn't clearly explain the difference between recreational and medical weed.
So once you do that, I'm convinced that people would say no on the legalization of recreational marijuana.
Poll director Patrick Murray says the sponsor's tactic might work because support softens when people get more details.
Sponsors of this idea of putting it on a referendum feel that if they can get a public debate going around a referendum, that they would probably be able to defeat it as more details came out. And so there's nothing in the poll that suggests that they're wrong. They might in fact be able to do that.
The legislators say they got the idea for a ballot question from students at Ramsey High School who studied the effects of legalizing recreational cannabis on issues like tax rates, auto insurance costs, and traffic safety. They found an uninformed public.
Putting it to a vote would give them time to be informed, but also make them more inclined to look up this information, try to figure it out, and it will force the government to inform the public.
We learned that 10 states have passed recreational marijuana, and 9 of those states have put it up to referendum and let the people's voices be heard.
What they've come up with, they're actually making an impact for their communities and their state, and I think that's anything we could wish for as an educator.
The governor opposes a ballot question. His spokesman said in a statement, Murphy believes that legalizing adult use marijuana should occur through the legislative process. He looks forward to continuing the productive discussions with the legislature and building on the recent progress they've made together. Legislative leaders concur. For now, Democrats have agreed on a bill to tax recreational weed sales, but are still struggling for consensus on other aspects of legalization. Pointing to the recent ballot war over casinos outside of Atlantic City, Murray agreed any weed referendum would unleash a mega bankrolled battle for public opinion.
We're going to see a lot more money coming in on both sides. Folks who have a personal interest in this, a business interest, pharmaceutical companies, all sorts of things. We're probably going to get involved.
If we put it as a ballot referendum type of initiative, you know what? Let the airwaves, let the radio wars, let the information come out so that people can start doing their own research as to whether or not this makes sense for our state.
Right now, Democrats don't have enough votes to pass a bill legalizing recreational weed. A referendum question would need legislative approval by early August to get on the November ballot. In Ramsey, I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJTV News.
I want to be really clear about what my policy is.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is talking about her marijuana prosecution policy. On Wednesday, she and a panel of experts held a Q&A for a crowd at Baltimore City Community College. Mosby says while her office will no longer prosecute cases of possession, she wants to make one thing clear.
We are still proceeding upon possession with intent to distribute and distribution.
For example,
if there are baggies, if there are scales, if there are guns, if there is an observation of a hand-to-hand, we still intend to proceed upon those types of cases. We do believe that selling drugs on the city of Baltimore fuels violence.
Ashia Parker says decriminalizing marijuana is a step in the right direction and can help police focus more on violent crime.
I believe that events like this and just doing more research is also the steps along the way, so we can make sure that the policy will line up and that in the future we're making the right decisions on how to go about crime fighting.
Rick Height served in the Baltimore Police Department for more than 30 years and is a former Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Chief.
The question becomes policy and procedure. As we go about having this discussion tonight, I'd like to hear what instructions do you give to law enforcement? Officers will continue to make arrests until the law is changed in Annapolis. It's like walking a tightrope in the wind. It's hard to fathom in today's world when the laws are changing. And usually policy is always lagging behind process.
Mosby says research proves possession of marijuana does not impact public safety. It impacts poor communities of color.
There are certain individuals and certain demographics that are profiting off of it. Meanwhile, there's an expectation that we're going to continue to criminalize poor black and brown people. Not under my watch.
And Mosby says she wants to vacate nearly 5,000 prior marijuana convictions dating back to 2011. She also wants to push for legislation in Annapolis. We are live tonight. Karen Campbell, WBAL TV 11 News.
WBAL TV. Just to be clear, we're still going to arrest people for selling marijuana.
Just to be clear.
Just spark up. No problem. We are a little snacky.
Yeah.
But we're eating nuts.
Totally snacky, eating nuts.
Dogs are cute.
So cute.
Jack is stirring. That was our Eastern Bloc. We heard the state's attorney general there. CBD, all the controversy happening. They've delayed that crackdown, but June they're going to drop the hammer. Vermont, ready to tax. About 18% there. It's a lie. Somebody came up with it last week, I think somebody said. A former state trooper said a 2-year moratorium on taxes when you legalize it. Legalize it nationally and 2-year tax holiday on all cannabis sales. That way it gets people out of the black market, right? Uh-huh. New Hampshire, looking at what they're going to do and make the money, like Polish Hammer said. Figure out ways to get that marijuana money into the tax coffers as well as into the banks, which is of course, going to be probably the first stuff that gets changed on a federal level.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to
get the money. It's
we're
all
definitely,
about the money.
We're definitely going to see stuff change. But Vermont actually making a couple of moves there. Looks like they're I can't
remember
that positive liberty coming through out there. I think in Vermont, they're changing the list, eliminating the lists for medical.
Which means you got to talk to your electeds.
Shouldn't probably eat these nuts while we're talking.
No, it's terrible. If you talk to your electeds, stuff changes.
Exactly. No lists. Home grow happening for patients in New Hampshire. Positive liberty. The liberties they give you. As opposed to negative liberty are yours without restraint. So there you go. That's the Eastern Bloc. We're going to move into the Midwestern Bloc. We are debating Kant philosophy here, guys. It's true, and I blame Alexis Bortel for starting it.
Yeah. Highbrow, high-minded, high people,
high-minded folks
chatting
in our show, a Reefer Revolution Live, where we're going to move into the Midwest now. We're going to go into Illinois, where if they are going to legalize it, apparently they're going to run out of weed pretty quick. Did you hear California's going to run out of weed this summer? California's supposed to run out of legal cannabis this summer.
That's ridiculous.
And Illinois might have the same problem, and they're going to want that $700 million tax revenue. So they're going to get some more. They're going to need more growers. Ohio, guess what? It's too expensive to buy medicine in Ohio. Surprise, surprise. While people are still waiting for the opportunity to use the product in Ohio, many people looking for that. Michigan, all sorts of troubles continue as communities ban pot shops and people figure out how they can sell it in this gray market that they're talking about. It's the gift cannabis economy. We've seen it in D.C. We've seen it in other places. People are going to get their weed, and especially when it's overpriced. Meanwhile, Indiana hypocrisy is on display. Last week we reported that the Indiana governor did smoke weed in college, and there's a veteran over there that is not too thrilled about that, the hypocrisy behind that. And good news still coming out of Wisconsin after the referendum last November, with all kinds of cheeseheads wanting some of that cheese out there in Wisconsin, whether it's medical or recreational. They want some of the cheese. And the governor heard him, and he wants medical marijuana. And the Republicans are throwing on the brakes in Wisconsin. So let's get into our Midwestern block. We're going to start in Illinois. This is the Reefer Revolution Live Afterburn. Moving into the Midwest. We'll see you on the other side. Oh,
we're going to eat some nuts.
We're gonna go back to eating. I'm eating pistachios, spicy pistachios.
Oh, really?
Salt and pepper.
Eek.
They're a little hot. They are indeed.
I'm eating organic, dry roasted almonds from California.
Yeah, those aren't organic.
What? Yes, they are.
Those are.
Yeah.
And almonds use more water than cannabis.
Whatever. They're from California. All right, let's play that beautiful Midwestern footage.
Midwestern news footage. Here we go, guys.
I'm sure they're going to reuse the same B-roll.
Yeah, let's see if we can call out the B-roll. And
who's
they always
using
use
cannabis?
And also, who uses cannabis in the anchors?
That's
the
right.
anchors and reporters. Which ones use cannabis?
Yeah.
In the Midwest. Here we go.
Yeah, it's that time.
It's that time.
If recreational marijuana is legalized in Illinois, there's fear that demand would far outweigh supply. 2 Democratic lawmakers from Chicago working to legalize marijuana in Illinois commissioned a report from a Colorado consulting firm. Its study found the demand for legal weed in Illinois could be as high as 550,000 pounds a year. Illinois already allows medical marijuana through 16 licensed growers, but the study casts doubt that current growers could handle even half of the increased demand.
Ohio's medical marijuana program is often praised for being highly regulated, but Amy Wolfenbarger says the regulations governing this new industry may not be helping the people who need marijuana the most.
A lot of our patients are disabled. They're living on fixed income, and the cost for their medication is very difficult for them to obtain.
And it's not being paid for by an insurance company?
Nothing's covered by medical insurance, not even your doctor's visit.
New numbers from the state show the average price for a pound of cannabis is $7,500 or $470 an ounce, not including tax.
One word, outrageous. Outrageously expensive.
Rob Ryan runs the Ohio Patient Network. He doubts the current price of legal marijuana is doing anything to diminish the black market, where an ounce of pot costs a lot less than $470.
It can range from anywhere from about $100 to $300 an ounce.
Still, Ryan is hopeful prices at dispensaries will eventually come down.
Right now, it's a matter of supply and demand. Demand is high, supply is very low.
And building cultivation sites like this one in Yellow Springs isn't free. Growers also have to spend money to comply with the state's marijuana testing guidelines and strict packaging rules.
I think a lot of us need to realize, too, that a lot of these owners are not activists, and I'm sure that they would like to recoup some of the money. So I think that's part of the problem why the prices are so high in the beginning.
Now, I talked to an industry insider today who told me medical marijuana prices in Ohio are actually in line with other regulated states like Pennsylvania. He cautioned against expecting a drastic price drop in the future, though he did say the price should adjust to whatever the marketplace supports. Todd Dykes, WWT News 5.
All right, Todd. As of a few weeks ago, 20,000 people had medical marijuana cards in Ohio.
One of those patients lives around Youngstown. First News reporter Noah Daniels-Wilder talked with him and his doctor about how the drug is helping. Noah joins us live in the studio tonight.
Medical marijuana has been legal in Ohio for a few months, allowing patients like the one I talked to stop taking harmful pills. What I also learned tonight is that the program has something like an Uber service that will pick up and deliver the medicine.
Welcome to Restore Compassionate Care. How are you?
Will Hartley has brain cancer. He's been through 3 surgeries because of it.
After my first surgery, I started having seizures.
Spending 3 to 4 times a day.
Sometimes more. It's embarrassing.
He had to take 12 to 13 different medications because of his surgery.
I was sick. It made me throw up for hours every time I took it.
The amounts of medication caused complications to his organs.
My kidneys started shutting down at one point.
And the medicine didn't slow down the amount of seizures.
They were 2, 3, sometimes more, just every single week.
So his doctors recommended medical marijuana.
Now it's maybe 2 or 3 a month.
Medical marijuana does help in, in cancer. It also helps in seizure disorder.
Dr. Rajendra Korala prescribed Hartley his medical marijuana card. At first, Hartley struggled getting his medication because there was no dispensaries in Ohio.
We're so glad, Ohio finally took the step and the dispensaries are open here.
The one in Wintersville has like candies and stuff where you don't have to vaporize it, which at least for me, I prefer it.
But Hartley still had a tough time getting his medication.
Because of the seizures, I'm not able to drive anymore.
And that's where a program called Caregivers bridges that gap for patients like Hartley.
Even if they are not able to drive, if we register them to the state website, and then have a designated caregiver, then the caregiver can get it for them.
And delivers it straight to their house.
It's changing lives. It's making the world a better place.
And a better life for Will Hartley. Greenleaf Medical of Ohio and Warren is waiting for its final inspection. They hope to open sometime this March. Live in the newsroom, Noah Daniels-Wilder, WKBN 27 First News.
It's legal to smoke marijuana here in the state of Michigan, but if you don't have a medical marijuana card, how do you get your hand on some weed? Well, some people are now resorting to the so-called gray market and selling high-priced t-shirts and gifting marijuana with it. But in the end, it's really hurting places like this, the medical marijuana dispensaries.
It's definitely in the gray area, but I like to say it's more in the green area.
The founder of Cannabis is making money online, selling t-shirts starting at $50, then gifting marijuana with the product.
We keep everything as, legal as possible.
Currently, marijuana regulators are coming up with rules and regulations when it comes to recreational and gifting pot.
It is pretty upsetting. We have over about $75,000 in licensing fees annually.
Laura sent us a statement saying in part, quote, "We are reviewing the provisions of the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act Proposal 1 as we begin to work toward implementing the facility regulatory program." Lawyers at the Cannabis Council in Detroit say, yes, it is illegal to gift marijuana when purchasing an item.
A gift of up to 2.5 ounces may be provided from adult to adult without remuneration, and it cannot be promoted or advertised.
Dispensaries say things need to be drawn out sooner rather than later.
They need to stop the illegal deliveries tomorrow, and it is possible. There's so much danger involved in this that people don't understand.
Until the rules and laws are eventually regulated, entrepreneurs like Cannabis will continue gifting marijuana.
It's not really hurting their business. If anything, having like a medical marijuana patient going to their dispensary to buy gifts for other people is potentially more business for them.
Laura also says they're confident they will meet the statutory deadline of December 6th this year to have license applications available for prospective businesses. We'll see. Reporting in Walled Lake, I'm Alan Campbell, 7 Action News.
Legal marijuana doesn't necessarily mean legal marijuana sales. Communities all over mid-Michigan are trying to figure out if they want to allow it within their borders. Fox 47's Kellen Buddy tells us why it's not an easy decision.
We really would be running blind, and so at this point it's just best to send the message that we're not interested right now. Once the state has developed all the regulations that would tell us how these things can be managed, then we could reconsider.
For cities that have opted in, there are other things to figure out.
I think the issue is, yes, we want to opt in and we want to let a certain number of facilities in, but where is the most appropriate location and the appropriate number of these facilities in the township? People are concerned with provisioning centers, issues with being next to a church, a school, a daycare, and that negative aspect of having them in those locations.
On paper, the selling of recreational marijuana by a licensed facility comes with many benefits.
We're seeing a lot of interest in properties, especially those that may have sat vacant for a while, that now there's interest in those. The commercial operations and the advantages of employment for people in the area is a benefit.
But since the state has no regulations in place when it comes to selling recreational pot, those benefits are non-existent.
Since there's zero benefit available right now, but there is potential negative, then we figured it was probably best to avoid the negative.
Kellen Buddy, Fox 47 News.
The ballot proposal that legalized recreational marijuana last November allows cities and townships to ban dispensaries, but they cannot ban people from using recreational or medical pot in their homes. The Meridian Township Board hasn't made a decision on recreational marijuana yet. Trustees want to figure out the medical marijuana regulations first.
And one of those opportunities comes with the legalization of marijuana right here in Michigan and what it means for the city going forward.
7 Action News reporter Kim Russell is in Detroit to show you the role marijuana will play in Detroit's future.
Just a few years ago, this may not have happened. Marijuana industry leaders got a seat at the table at a conference about the future of Detroit. This is a look at the panel leading one of many discussions today at the Detroit Policy Conference at the Motor City Casino. Their topic used to be taboo, marijuana.
If you were to do this 10 years ago, I don't think we would have had that much of a turnout.
Rush Hassan is in charge of operations and business development at The Reef, a marijuana business that is investing millions of dollars as it expands in Detroit. He says it's wonderful to see community and business leaders come together to help the marijuana industry help the city. They spoke about the challenges the industry is facing as it is banned from using federally insured banks, a policy he wants changed.
Any income that is sourced from what is deemed as an illegal substance, a bank will not touch.
It's significant because it's an industry that's coming to Michigan. It's here and it's not going away. So projections 2023 is about $1.6 billion that we'll put back into the economy in the state of Michigan.
Not everyone was cheerleading the industry. Scott Greenlee, the president of Healthy and Productive Michigan, spoke about how many communities are executing their right under the law to opt out of the legalization of marijuana.
Well, we're being contacted by communities literally daily that want to opt out.
There were many topics addressed at today's Detroit Policy Conference. If you want to take a look at more of what was talked about, go to our website, WXYZ.com. Kim Russell, 7 Action News.
The future of marijuana in Michigan taking a new direction. Governor Whitmer establishing a marijuana regulatory agency and eliminating the Marijuana Licensing Board. That new agency will oversee both medical and recreational pot.
7 Action News reporter Ali Hoxie shows you what this means for marijuana businesses in Detroit.
The reaction we're seeing from people today in the marijuana community in regards to this new agency is relief.
Anything the state can do to expedite those licenses is welcome.
Anquinette Sarfo is the co-owner of Botanic, a medical marijuana dispensary. Sarfo says they have all the paperwork they need to operate, but the road to get licensed has not been easy.
A lot of us in the industry have been dealing with delays, and even though we are licensed right now, there is a supply issue going on with getting enough licensed product in the supply chain.
She and others are hoping this new marijuana regulatory agency will help eliminate delays and clear up any confusion on the rules. Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed an executive order creating this agency today. The order states the agency's purpose is to avoid licensing delays and to better coordinate varying sources of authority for the enforcement of state law. The administration of state laws relating to marijuana can more effectively and efficiently be administered by a dedicated state agency.
How important is it for you to follow all the laws and regulations that Michigan has set?
Our license is dependent on us being compliant with all the rules and regulations.
The executive order states this agency will be up and running by April 30th. Reporting in Corktown, Ali Hoxie, 7 Action News.
All right, Ali, thank you.
Have you ever used marijuana?
Yes.
Even though it's illegal?
Yes.
When did you use it?
College.
That statement from Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb is angering a lot of people tonight, but it's not for the reasons that you may think.
In fact, tonight, some veterans now want to know why it was okay for the governor to use weed in college, but they can't use it now. Tonight, they shared their own opinions with our own Kevin Rader.
Come on, boys. Retired Air Force Captain Jason Straw has a deep passion for his family, his 2 dogs. We'll go off the front, boys. Out here. And for the men and women who served this country. That's why he couldn't believe what Governor Eric Holcomb said. He didn't have a problem with the governor's recreational use of marijuana in college. He has a problem with the governor's stand against the medicinal use of the drug. It's a matter of compassion for me. If you have compassion for your fellow brothers and sisters in arms, and even for your fellow citizens, you're going to look into it, you're going to support it.
Understanding that this doesn't cure, this may dull, but this does not cure.
Captain Straw traveled to Colorado to try medicinal marijuana for his migraine headaches. You told him about your migraines? Oh, yeah, and they
You wanted something to...
Yeah, and they showed me right what to take. They said, this is probably what's going to help you the most. He says it did help and was a much better and safer alternative than the opioids many veterans are currently being prescribed. But hearing a no from a Navy veteran left him in disbelief. He understands, well, he should understand war and suffering. You know, it's not like these people he's standing up and saying no to are, you know, people who don't deserve our respect.
We're following the law. And I'm proud of that fact.
But that also leaves fellow veterans caught in between.
You know, I don't want to be a criminal.
Kevin Rader, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
Medical marijuana is now legal in 33 different states and Washington, D.C. That would include 3 of our bordering states, Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois.
State lawmakers are blowing smoke at the idea of marijuana's bills making it through the State House. David Williams reports on that failing legislation.
And I'm very frustrated and disappointed in the fact that we have certain people in this state that will just not open their eyes and look at it the way it deserves to be looked at.
Republican State Rep Jim Lucas felt so strongly about marijuana, he traveled to Colorado last year for research. He came back and put the best of what he learned into 2 House bills. Lucas wanted to decriminalize possession and bring medical marijuana to Indiana.
Both of those bills would have helped not just a few Hoosiers, but tens of thousands of Hoosiers, especially the medical cannabis. We've seen 33 other states have adopted this. The states that have it are expanding their programs.
Democrat State Senator Karen Tallian's 3 cannabis-related bills got snuffed out a few days ago. Tallian wanted to create a cannabis compliance commission and legalize possession of less than 2 ounces of marijuana.
I also had a medical marijuana bill that I thought really might get a hearing until the governor came out and said, we're not doing that.
Are these 2 lawmakers hopeful in the session's second half?
In this session, no, I'm not.
There's always a chance. You know, we have some Senate bills coming over we can look to add some amendments to and maybe turn up the heat on some of these people that are standing in our way.
Governor Eric Holcomb says he wants Indiana to stay in line with federal law.
If the law changed, we would look at all the positive or adverse impacts it might have on our population. But I'm not convinced that other states have made a wise decision.
That was David Williams reporting medical marijuana is legal in 33 states, including Illinois and Ohio. Recreational marijuana is now legal in 10 states, including Michigan.
People shouldn't be treated like criminals.
Legalizing medical marijuana and decriminalizing small amounts of recreational weed. It's one of the most high-profile initiatives in the governor's budget proposal and one of the most controversial, facing a tough road in the Republican-controlled legislature.
How confident are you on the marijuana legalization? There's been some really strong opposition from the other side on that.
Yeah, it's something we'll continue to talk about. Clearly, there's strong opposition, but there's thousands of people across the state that voted in referenda to say, yes, this is what we do want.
Polls show voters across the state back legalization measures, especially when it comes to medical marijuana. But the co-chair of the legislature's budget writing committee says it's not going anywhere yet.
People overwhelmingly support legalization of medical marijuana. Will it happen?
No. And I'll tell you why not. We have to do research on why it's so popular and what the benefits are.
Still, the governor believes strong public opinion about legalization will make it happen in this budget.
People are voting for medical marijuana. I mean, that has never gone down that I know of. So I feel confident about that.
Kent, is the governor as confident when it comes to decriminalizing recreational marijuana?
Well, he appears to be. He says that it's part of his criminal justice reforms, but that may be a tougher sell than medical marijuana with some in the legislature.
Ken Wainscott reporting live in the newsroom tonight.
So this is what we call the Capitol Press Conference Room. Come on in. You may recognize it from that backdrop, the Capitol blueprint. Well, something happened in this room today that was very striking, considering what happened in the same room a month ago.
That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know.
The day was January 16th, when supporters of legalization hijacked the opposition's press conference and emotions ran high. Fast forward to the first Friday in March.
We want to engage in civil discussions that are respectful. Even if we disagree, we can disagree respectfully.
He proposed this idea, and I thought it was a really good idea. It's a good way for us all to, as I said, for the public to be able to hear the debate and hear the different sides.
Marcus Harkis, a cannabis user and legalization supporter, standing next to Kim Bemis, a drug counselor and former user who is leading the opposition. They announced they've agreed to a series of 4 public meetings around the state in the next few months on the ins and outs of marijuana.
Hopefully we can win them over and get them to support full legalization. I won't hold my breath.
Or the other way around.
Because there's always going to be opposition.
Now, don't kid yourself. Many spirited debates remain ahead when it comes to marijuana, but this event was calm and peaceful, kind of like what was happening outside. From the Capitol, I'm John Croman.
There you go, a joint meeting.
Joint meeting
Between the
there you go.
opposed and for. That is what definitely in Minnesota. And
Look at the body language, man.
he's like, this guy over here and this guy. See, cannabis brings people together.
Listen, if you talk to people, you find where you can find common ground. I think that's what's so cool about what's happening in the world today, that people are talking to each other more. I know it seems like we're talking to each other less, but really, we're talking to each other more.
Well, we're certainly talking to ourselves a lot.
Well, cannabis brings new people into your life that you would never otherwise necessarily meet.
Sure.
And connect with. You know, I mean, like, yeah, it's just a cool thing. Cannabis is rad.
Way too expensive in Ohio, though, for patients. That's for sure. They're
Not
not
for
going
long.
to keep anybody out of the in the regulated market at $470 an ounce.
It'll change.
And Governor Whitmore going to hopefully get rid of that stupid committee or council or whatever the heck they were.
Yeah.
The board, where they only met once a month to approve licenses.
Mm-hmm. Crazy town.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
you need a dedicated board.
and then Indiana should just get its head out of his ass.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that you can sit there with a straight face, say, "Yeah, I broke the law. I smoked cannabis." My next question would be, when did you start heroin?
Yeah. Or meth.
Have you tried? And do you plan on trying heroin? Because you believe it's a gateway drug, obviously. So obviously you tried heroin after you
wouldn't
tried
mind
that in
trying
college.
opium.
Smoke a little opium, maybe
I wouldn't
someday.
mind trying opium someday if I knew the source. Yo,
In the right
for
bar
those
in
who are,
Morocco.
those of you who are cannabis naive or new to these sorts of things, always know your source.
Oh, yeah.
Always know your
Like
source.
we're talking cannabis, holy cannabis oil, talking about that. Even these guys, Dr. Oz, this is the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems FDA had for years with under the previous farm bill, because this CBD stuff has been floating around a little bit, and claims, of course, being made. They don't like that, but they also don't like the stuff that doesn't have anything in it. So, I'm pretty sure HCO's got some paperwork. People that are making medicine should have their labs, man. They should have their labs, and it's because it's a new game. It's a new world. The states or the regulated market is testing the products, and that's gonna up the game for the gray area, the gray market, and the fully unregulated market. Maybe not a fully unregulated market, but certainly the gray market. Folks trying to get legal and still producing quality medicine. As opposed to just trying to make money. So, testing's coming, and it'd be great if there were enough labs and they were credible, because you'll get the same results from the same lab, from the same batch. I mean, they'll test it 3 different times, and it'll be, 3 different results. So, so the science of that isn't as exact as you would think. Strange enough. That's why doctors and stuff, they like one. Yeah, we want to test it 7 times before we use it. Really? Laws, at least I think I think it's got to be tested 3 times in California, I think. I'm not sure exactly. But, a lot of folks just don't want to test it at all. And we survived pretty good with, untested cannabis for years on flower. Now that you're concentrating stuff, though, you concentrate what's in it. You concentrate what's in the plant. So if the plant is being grown with pesticides or stuff in the water that's no good, whatever ends up in that plant is going to get squeezed out of it. That's the testing regime, over-testing regime. Now with this vaping thing, too, the vape cartridges, the off-brand, the industry knows that the what do you call it, I guess, calling them knockoff vape pens, that they're not only do they not have the right medicine in it, but they're all full of lead. So this is an issue. It's a new industry, guys. It's a new industry. You have to be buyer beware, know your source, Know where you're getting your oil. Haley's Hope, HCO.
Holy Cannabis Oil tests every batch.
They test every batch, right? You know,
Right
Haley's
here.
Hope is good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and if you are going into the regulated market, you can find great brands like Papa's and Barkley or Care by Design.
Yeah, really good.
If you can do the tax and you know, don't have a previous collective or whatever, because don't exist in California anymore though, guys. So you're gonna have to bite the bullet and go into a dispensary or learn or grow your own and learn how to make it.
That's right.
Because
you have plenty of time for that.
Because you got plenty of time to that to grow 6 giant cannabis plants in your yard, so you can make a bunch of medicine.
While you're, you know,
everybody's got time for that.
Doing your thing.
Yeah, everybody's got time. And yet they've delayed in California the nonprofit report for the collective model. They were supposed to do a report, do a year after legalization. They've delayed it another year to see how a nonprofit model could work in the cannabis space in California. Delay that.
To 2020.
Delay that stuff. We don't need to know about that.
You mean to 2020?
2020, yeah.
But
let's drive all the collectives completely out of business.
Are we moving into where?
We're moving into the South.
Oh, the South. Okay.
Why, do you want to go to the West?
No, it's fine. South
Let's go to the
fine.
South.
We got Bonnie
finish
Lee
up
and
in the
Laura
West.
P here,
Perfect.
and then we'll wrap it up with the West, with the good news in the West.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Julie
There you
Love,
go.
gotta be a chemist now to peddle weed.
Yeah, exactly. Where, you know, or a lot of time with a crock pot.
No, that's true. It's true.
And
Being a chemist is handy.
Or buy a $300 press. And then just, you know, press flour in your kitchen. Because everybody that's like the champion juicer.
Right.
Who the hell wants to do that? You know?
Right.
You mean, well, there's that butter machine, right? There's a butter machine.
There's, green oil machine.
It's that fireman that got fired for that in Florida, I think, for using a green oil machine in the firehouse.
Don't do it in the firehouse.
Don't do it in the firehouse.
It's tons of math to make quality product, Holy Cannabis Oil tells us.
That's right.
I'm sure it is.
That's right.
I can't do math.
I have great respect for the growers and the formulators.
And the makers, yeah.
The oil makers and formulators, Dr. Fish, and just the mad scientist nature of this all, trying to create good quality medicine from organic materials. It's a challenge. It's a challenge in this environment. But we shall overcome with weed as we move into the Southern Block. Thanks, everybody. This is Reefer Revolution Live, the Afterburn. What was it? Feel the afterburn.
Yeah, feel the afterburn.
Feel the afterburn. As we move into our Southern Block, we will start in Oklahoma, where there's more medical marijuana laws being passed, as folks in Arkansas are rallying for continued medical marijuana reform laws. Meanwhile, CBD is happening in Texas. Don't they know that it's wrong to be using CBD in things? Silly people.
It's against federal law, don't you know?
As the debate in legalization in Texas continues, that's pretty exciting. Georgia, too, is changing its laws. And there's a lot of people that smoke weed in Atlanta, and they're having trouble recruiting police officers with that question. So they decided to drop it. As Virginia loosens up its rules to allow nurses to give medical cannabis, possibly. And there's news out of Florida, too. And that's our whole Southern Block. So here we go, guys. Let's get into it. And we will start in one of our favorite spots.
He'll enjoy Oklahoma's wide open spaces. He loves to run and run.
Despite concerns that were expressed, a bill regulating medical marijuana passes today in the State House of Representatives. Our News 9's Aaron Brelbeck, of course, is covering the Capitol for us. Aaron?
Well, after State Question 788 passed last year legalizing the use of medical marijuana, the State Department of Health came under fire for usurping the will of the people with harsh rules that included banning all smokable marijuana and requiring a pharmacist to be present at dispensaries. Well, those rules were scrapped, and then it was back to the drawing board.
We heard from many people who were involved in the passage of 788, the campaign, and as well as Department of Health and different groups.
And with that input, a bipartisan group of lawmakers came up with a set of rules they believe does not undermine the will of the people. Rules like testing requirements to make sure marijuana has the right potency and is free from dangerous chemicals.
I don't remember on that ballot question seeing a part where voters were asking for 77 pages of additional regulation.
Lawmakers had concerns about taxing the product. Dispensaries can't use banks because the federal government does not recognize marijuana as having medical benefits. Lawmakers are also concerned about patients and guns. The federal government says it's a crime to use an illegal drug like marijuana and have a firearm.
I have a letter here from the ATF, the regional director, specifically prohibiting the sellers of firearms to disregard this statute.
Confiscations have not happened in recreational states. It's unlikely the first gun confiscation would occur in the state of Oklahoma.
Finally, some lawmakers had some concerns about the amount of marijuana a patient is allowed to have. Under 788, a person can have 6 mature marijuana plants, 6 seedlings, and 72 ounces of edible marijuana. The bill doesn't change that.
Snoop Dogg can't smoke or eat or take that much marijuana in a 30-day supply.
The bill now goes over to the state Senate. Live at the state capitol, Aaron Brillback, Oklahoma's own News 9.
Marijuana patients from all across the state were at the state capitol today, rallying for more access. Members of the Drug Policy Education Group are trying to get lawmakers to sponsor a new bill. It would allow children with medical marijuana cards to receive the product at school in a non-smoking form from a nurse. The law passed in 2017 prohibits cannabis on school grounds. One student who was diagnosed with epilepsy at 5 spoke at the Capitol today on her 9th birthday to ask lawmakers for help.
I'm really glad to help other people because some of them might not be able to fight for themselves. It's important to me that all other kids have their medicine able even at school so they can have better learning days. I know some people disagree with us, and that's okay. But medical cannabis is a medicine that can help sick people, even them if they get sick. I'm very thankful for y'all putting the effort.
And Jensen worries also she will be forced to check out of school, leave the grounds, get her medications, then check back in every day.
Medical marijuana patients from across Arkansas rallied at the state capitol today for more access. Members of the Drug Policy Education Group are trying to get lawmakers to sponsor a new bill. It would allow children with medical marijuana patient cards to receive the product at school in a non-smoking form from a nurse. A law passed in 2017 prohibits cannabis on school grounds. One student who was diagnosed with epilepsy at 5 years of age spent part of her 9th birthday at the Capitol today asking lawmakers for help.
I'm really glad to help other people because some of them might not be able to fight for themselves. It's important to me that all other kids have their medicine able even at school so they can have better learning days.
Jensen worries she will be forced to check out of school and leave school grounds each day in order to get her medication.
She was escorted to the school resource officer's office where she told deputies that she regularly brings the knife to school. We received a statement from Richland 1 saying safety is their top priority. They said they have not made any changes as a result of Monday's incident, but they will be reevaluating their.
That was weird. I'm not sure where that story came
from. We're getting off track here.
Okay, mystery stories in the block. Hang on.
We went through these, I promise.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was weird. Oh, you too.
7 and time for in other news stories that are.
We'll just cut this out later. So we're in a timeout.
Timeout. I'm fixing my timeout.
So yeah, I want to talk about that since you're in the timeout. I'm just going to mention it.
Bring it up.
So Barbara Heth was traveling from Washington to from Minnesota to Washington, and brought her tribal ID with her, as you do, and was denied access to a Washington dispensary. So we wanted to let people know that that's how that rolls, apparently, in Washington. But luckily, she had family there,
terrible.
And it's shitty that they would do that.
Why would they leave that out? Why would they leave that out of the law? Why wouldn't they make
the tribal ID is fine?
That would be included. That's
well, it seems
it's
to
federal.
Me, I don't know. It seems to me that probably Barbara knows her rights and that's probably allowed, but the dispensary probably didn't know that.
Right.
And so she probably has you could call and, educate them. And we could all call and educate them as well.
Everybody's got time for that.
No, but we could do that. We'd be happy to do that if you let us know if you let us know which dispensary needs to get education. We'd be all happy to call. There's 34 people watching. I'm sure some of us would call.
Sure. And this is Washington State.
Yeah, Washington State. But luckily, you still have cannabis tonight, and you
Good.
are.
And thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in.
That's right. And she's sharing us with your family.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Welcome.
So thank you so much for doing that.
Cool.
And I'm really sorry you had that experience.
Yeah.
And other people are also sorry that you had that experience. And I hope you have a much better evening than that.
Wherever you got your cannabis from.
Well, her brother lives in Washington.
Oh, very good.
But Barbara was saying that they made her feel less than human. So that's really shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I would feel the same way. So I'm so sorry that happened.
A ridiculous policy if it's strictly a policy from that dispensary, for sure. But if it is the law that it only take a state-issued ID and that wasn't taken care of in the law in Washington, that should be changed. Yeah, that should be changed.
And as we've seen, these rules can be changed. Everything is a living document, apparently, and so we just need to put public pressure to do so.
Now there are, but Washington is it's an adult use state.
It is.
So it's not even a matter of medical reciprocity.
No, but she might be very young looking.
Well, that's good, but still, they should have taken the ID.
Because there's an age thing,
Indeed. All right, I think I got my playlist back. We're going.
Okay,
we're moving into Texas. All right.
Are made for water cooler chat. CBD is going upscale and could be hitting the Galleria. Cannabis is showing up in luxe beauty products and becoming the focus for Wall Street investors. Barney's New York is unveiling a shop that's selling cannabis-related paraphernalia like glass pipes and 24-karat gold rolling papers. The shops are showing up in more than 100 shops at Simon malls across the country. All right, you got it from your mama. New research says responsibility and conscientiousness are actually passed down from our parents. So a study from Pennsylvania State University looked at more than 700 siblings. It found closely related siblings are more similar to their parents, even if step-siblings grew up in the same home. Our genetics just give us, quote,
The Compassionate Care Act, otherwise known as the Medical Marijuana Bill, was in front of a state Senate subcommittee for the first time today.
Lead sponsor and Republican Senator Tom Davis says they've already made changes to the bill to make it more appealing to stakeholders in a medical marijuana debate. Here's News 19's
So yes,
Jacob
I think that this process makes it a good bill, but it also educates the public and members of the General Assembly, and it's going to be a better bill as a consequence of it.
Republican Senator Tom Davis spent a 90-minute medical affairs subcommittee hearing explaining the changes to the Compassionate Care Act. He said the changes came from talks with stakeholders in the debate over medical marijuana.
Whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the medical community, whether it's the Attorney General, whether it's business groups like the Chamber of Commerce and BIPEC, I want there to be a serious discussion with them, listening to their concerns, and then a very good faith effort made to address those concerns in this bill.
Davis says the changes emphasize the bill's medical focus, creating an opt-in policy for doctors.
So, for those of you who haven't watched the show before, we point out a couple of things. Anchors and reporters that we know are high.
Right.
Or use cannabis somewhere. At
Or how to use cannabis, right?
Right.
How they use cannabis.
Right. How they use it. That's a fun game. And then we also point out all of the same B-roll the prohibition states use in every newscast.
Yeah.
And this clip is a classic.
Truly a classic.
Let's roll back a couple of seconds just to appreciate it.
in this bill.
Davis says the changes emphasize the bill's medical focus, creating an opt-in policy for doctors, stricter prescribing guidelines, and better direction on sales tax funds to medical research. It also added language on medical marijuana marketing and public education. Medical Affairs Committee Chairman Danny Verdon says the focus is on medicine.
Very conservative approach with the emphasis on evidence-based science. I think we can get there in time. I believe that it's very important that the medical and scientific debate catch up with the political debate in this country.
Davis and Verdon touched on the bill's restrictive approach. The bill would allow registered patients to get 2 ounces of cannabis-based medicine every 2 weeks. It does not allow the smoking of marijuana. It also can only be prescribed for certain medical conditions like cancer and PTSD. In Columbia, Jacob Reynolds, News 19 WLTX.
Georgia lawmakers eyeing the next step for cultivating medical marijuana. Here's how the bill would work. The Georgia Department of Health would issue 2 types of licenses for growing medical marijuana, Class 1 and Class 2. Class 1 licenses would be for large operations able to invest at least $10 million in Georgia. Those licenses and their holders would be able to grow marijuana, convert the leaf crop to cannabis oil, and operate up to 5 retail outlets to sell that oil. Class 2 licenses are for smaller companies, limited to growing no more than 20,000 square feet of marijuana. They would be allowed to operate up to 3 retail outlets. Both Class 1 and Class 2 applicants would be required to install video cameras and be secured 24/7. All marijuana would be grown indoors. The legislation still has to go through the General Assembly, so we'll see what goes.
Now to a story you'll see only on Fox 5. For years, Atlanta police applicants have been asked whether they used drugs in the past 6 months.
Yeah, because so many applicants have been eliminated by truthfully answering yes, the department has decided they'll no longer ask that question, but that decision is sparking debate.
Fox 5's Morris Diggs joining us live from Buckhead with this exclusive story tonight. Morris?
Chief Erica Shields knows that this change will be controversial, but what the department says is they've just been losing too many people by banning those who have smoked marijuana. That is, by banning those who have used drugs in the past. Smoke pot, admit to it, and you could not apply to become a police officer. Recent drug activity and law enforcement just don't mix. So when Atlanta recruiters asked about it, they quickly ruled out potential candidates. But now there's a policy change. Supervisors won't ask or consider if an applicant got high before, as long as they pledge to stop the use going forward. Community leader Chris Rich couldn't believe it when I told him about the new policy.
It's dangerous. I think it opens up to a lot of other worries that I'm sure current police officers will worry about, as far as a new recruit who's basically just, saying, trust me, I won't be on drugs, even though I've been on drugs for the past 6 months, to protect you, to have your back.
It remains the case that every police candidate undergoes a one-time drug screening when they're offered the job. But the police union leader told me that's not a good enough standard.
I'm looking to hire 2 people. One has no issues, and another one has an issue with doing illegal activity, and I'm looking for a law enforcement officer. I think I would just take my chance on the one that has nothing.
The department explained the change was made because attitudes here and across the country have changed about marijuana usage. And in too many cases, APD was losing otherwise quality candidates. A spokesperson for the chief said, "To be clear, we will not tolerate the use of marijuana or any other illegal substance by any department employee while we're eliminating it as a screening question for new recruits. The department still prohibits the use of illegal drugs, including marijuana, and is increasing random drug testing of its employees to ensure compliance. We expect all new hires to immediately adhere to our substance abuse policies." It's already happened. You'd like to see the command reverse this policy?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure, the citizens here in Atlanta, beyond Buckhead, would want the same. That sounds like something pretty unprecedented.
New at 5:30, we're continuing to follow how the General Assembly is expanding access to medical marijuana.
This bill isn't just progressive for Virginia, it's progressive for the nation.
Right now, even if a student has a doctor's recommendation to use CBD or THCA oil, they can't take their medicine at school.
10 on your side's Capitol Bureau reporter Sarah McCloskey tells us a bill that could change this is now sitting on the governor's desk.
We had no
idea what was happening.
Jacob Spurl was an average 10-year-old whose life took a turn about a year ago.
At times they will also last over 5 minutes, and you have to then administer rescue medication.
Doctors told the Spurls Jacob has epilepsy. Dad Jake says the diagnosis changed the family, even stopping Jacob from taking the bus.
He can no longer safely go from his home to school.
To help curb how often seizures happen, Jacob started using CBD oil as part of his treatment.
On average, he was having one about every 10 days. The CBD had a marked improvement on that.
But they've had to cut back because under the current law, Jacob could be expelled for having cannabis on school grounds.
And that did not yet extend an affirmative defense to the school health care providers.
Twin bills in the House and Senate fix the problem. It makes sure school health care providers are not prosecuted for distributing CBD or THCA oil to students with a doctor's recommendation.
Virginia will now be the 4th state in the country to allow school health care professionals to administer medical cannabis just as they would any other pharmaceutical.
If the governor approves the legislation, Spurl says more options will be available for families like his.
This bill assists my son, but that it assists all Virginia families.
5 medical cannabis dispensaries are set to open within the year. A spokesperson from the governor's office says he's still reviewing these bills. The deadline to sign them is March 26th. Reporting in Richmond, I'm Sarah McCluskey.
A new bill could soon legalize medical marijuana in South Carolina. The drug would help people who suffer from chronic illnesses and pain. People would only be allowed to have 2 ounces every 14 days, and smoking it would not be allowed. Patients would also have to carry an identification card.
Lawmakers have filed 2 bills in the Florida House to legalize recreational use of marijuana. While that's legal in 10 states now, right now only medical marijuana is legal here in Florida. The proposed bills would allow adults 21 and over to use the drug at home or in private places. If you were caught smoking pot in a public place, you would face a $100 fine. This legislation would also create a pathway for retail stores and a tax on marijuana sales. A small portion of the revenue would go to research on the drug's safety and the potential health benefits of pot. We've posted links to both of the proposed bills in our story at WTSP.com. And our Phil Buck was in Tallahassee today for a one-on-one with Florida's first ever cannabis director. Holly Bell has only been on the job for about 3 weeks now, and she has a big job on her hands in various aspects of the cannabis industry in our state. Phil asked her about those legalization bills that were filed today.
So I haven't seen those bills, so I really can't comment. I would need to look at them, research them, and think about that. I do know that anytime you start something new, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of research and a lot of thought to how you need to implement that. Something that I don't talk about a lot is I have a daughter, and my daughter has mild cerebral palsy. And finding something that can help her and help her muscles relax has always been a challenge. And my first real exposure was her residing in California and getting a medical card and then questioning her. So that's my firsthand experience, talking to my daughter about her lifelong disability and how it has helped her and what it has done for her.
And that is just one small part of our conversation with the state's first ever cannabis director. The topics range from the future of industrial hemp in Florida to the state's smoking ban on medical marijuana and everything in between. So you'll be seeing more of that discussion in the coming days here on 10 News and on our social and digital pages as well.
The fight for legal recreational weed in Florida igniting.
Regulate it, tax it, and stop criminalizing people for using cannabis.
Could Florida be ready to smoke, toke, and choke? 2 lawmakers leading the charge right here in Central Florida.
The news station's Brian Scott live here in the studio with more. Brian.
Well, we've told you about the petition circulating the state. Well, now there are 2 Central Florida lawmakers with bills to get it done at the state capitol. Legal weed for adults, no prescription necessary.
We're starting to see the future of growing with technology like this.
And it's all eyes on the future in Patrick O'Brien's class. The future of that once taboo plant and of the business behind it that his Orlando Cannabis College students are helping grow mainstream.
It's taking it to the next level. It's taking it to that standard at which it should be.
Right now for medicine, but a bigger standard they've long hoped for could now be closer than ever. And it's just kind of a no-brainer, you know? Recreational marijuana. Orlando Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith co-sponsoring a bill this week to legalize, allow adults over 21 to buy it, grow it, and smoke it. There's no reason for why the state cannot regulate cannabis in a similar way that they're regulating alcohol use. The bill sets up rules for sale, proposed taxes on the plant, and rules against public use. While another Orange County legislator,
we're moving toward legalization.
Senator Randolph Bracey, also creating a path, a resolution in the Senate to put recreational pot on the ballot for voters to decide.
The underground market is still flourishing, and so we're either going to just hide our faces in the sand, or we decide that it's time to legalize marijuana.
In either path, Florida would join 10 other states and D.C. in full legalization. Colorado reporting more than $900 million in weed tax revenue since they legalized in 2014.
It's going to open us up to a bigger marketplace.
Patrick hopes this is Florida's time, though he sees it every day that his business, his plant, still has a lot of people to convince.
It's going to take the voters.
And as for the voters, more than 70% voted for medical pot in Florida just a few years ago. Recreational, though, is a whole nother beast. Even the governor saying last month he is still against that. But now a lot of efforts starting down that path. Live in the studio, Brian Scott, Fox 35 News. Well, we've told you about the petition circulating the state. Well, now there are two Central Florida lawmakers with bills to get it done at the state capitol. Legal weed for adults, no prescription necessary.
We're starting to see the future of growing with technology like this.
And it's all eyes on the future in Patrick O'Brien's class. The future of that once taboo plant and of the business behind it that his Orlando Cannabis College students are helping grow mainstream.
It's taking it to the next level. It's taking it to that standard at which it should be.
Right now for medicine, but a bigger standard they've long hoped for could now be closer than ever. And it's just kind of a no-brainer, you know? Recreational marijuana. Orlando Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith co-sponsoring a bill this week to legalize, allow adults over 21 to buy it, grow it, and smoke it. There's no reason for why the state cannot regulate cannabis in a similar way that they're regulating alcohol use. The bill sets up rules for sale, proposed taxes on the plant, and rules against public use. While another Orange County legislator,
we're moving toward legalization.
We're double dipping.
Double got slipped in. Somebody else put up the same story. Bastardos.
That's right.
All right, Florida. New cannabis commissioner there in Florida, a user and a medical patient, right? Is that what I heard?
Her daughter.
Her daughter.
Her daughter was a user. And she understands it now because of that. Her daughter lived in California. Lifelong disability, and she told her how it helped her. So I'd say that's pretty compelling. Pretty mind-changing.
Non-smokable medical cannabis coming to South Carolina. We see how that worked in Pennsylvania. Not very well. They changed their law. So maybe that'll help him too once that occurs in South Carolina.
Somebody worked with them to change that law that I just heard.
In Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Sicily.
Oh, it was Sicily.
Yeah, that's my reference. Dr. Seuss Sicily.
It was Sicily who worked to change that law. So guess what? We just got to work to do that.
Florida's changing it too. They're working on that.
Georgia getting into the game.
Yes.
And apparently you can't find anybody in good recruits. More cops should be smoking weed.
They really should be using
that
cannabis.
Should be like a requirement.
However they wish.
Yeah, absolutely. And Laura P. lives about an hour from Florida. Go Florida. Yeah, you know, they're going to get smoking. They're going to get their smokable flower in Florida. They're going to get recreational cannabis in Florida.
I'm glad that their commissioner is so enlightened. And
an enlightened it's good to have people in. It's good to have doctors and politicians and people involved in regulating the industry that actually have some skin in the game.
A little bit, even.
As it were. Some blood in the game.
Totally.
And that's good to hear. So that's our southern block, guys. We're going to move into our western block. And do you want to talk about
You can introduce the whole thing. Go ahead. The whole Western Bloc.
Oh,
the way
Western
you do.
Bloc, the way I do.
The way you do.
I have to prepare that.
That's fine. Go ahead.
The way I do, which is basically I riff
Yeah,
on
that's
the
fine. Riff it.
descriptions.
Go on, riff.
And we will start in Arizona,
Councilman
where
Gladys is out, but we're still starting in
he just
Arizona.
dips in and out. We should just go to, but he'll catch up at some point.
Yeah.
Arizona, where they're not quite sure about their testing procedures. As a matter of fact, they don't have any in Arizona. Utah, however, is starting to implement their policies around medical cannabis and the health industry there. Meanwhile, Idaho, after their adventure with trying to tell the difference between hemp and marijuana, they think they might have what it's going to take to figure that out. We'll see about that. As the LA City Council decides to crack down on these underground sales going on in Los Angeles, whereas Denver and Colorado is still trying to figure out the consumption lounge idea, because who wants to go to a lounge where you can smoke, but you can't buy any, drink anything, or eat anything? Kind of silly. But there's a story about that. And, of course, San Francisco, the best news coming out of SF is the social justice aspect. And San Francisco cleared over 8,000, close to 9,000 convictions.
Yeah.
With an amazing company, amazing project that's going on across the country. So
Yeah.
let's get into our Western Bloc, guys.
Should have mentioned that in the first hour. Sorry, we didn't mention that.
Although we
earlier,
didn't
guys.
mention the Code for America program.
Code for America program is pretty fucking rad.
We should have talked about that, and maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll get somebody from Code for America to come on and talk about what they're doing.
That'd be amazing.
That'd be fun to talk about in the first hour. But they're in this news in the Western Bloc, guys, and here we go.
Wait.
Yes.
We should talk about 1710 a little bit.
As we move into
We'll
it, go
preview
ahead.
1710. We can start with showing the people. So I follow this fella who follows legislation in California very closely.
He's a lobbyist, isn't he? Now?
I'm not sure exactly what his deal is. I'm sorry, I don't know his professional credentials.
But he's
I'm
heavily
such a
engaged
jerk.
in cannabis business in the capital.
He is really a co-op builder.
Co-op builder.
And his name's Hezekiah Allen. He's in Northern California there, in the zone, in the triangle. And he brought my attention to this bill, Assembly Bill 1710, which is kind of a placeholder bill. Do you have it up to show the people?
It is a plate. I was going to read Hezekiah's
do that.
His posts, because the bill basically it's a very simple bill. It's has one intention. And that basically is to help the craft cannabis industry. And he reads, this is from Hezekiah Allen's Facebook page, quoting from AB 1710, quote, "This bill would state the intent of the legislature to enact legislation to create more accessible pathways for compliance with cannabis laws by small-scale cannabis businesses," unquote. And he says, "I think this bill warrants our full attention. So many possibilities for what could grow from this seed. Small business owners, let your assembly person know what should be in this bill. Let me know," Hezekiah Allen, "if you need help identifying your assembly person, or if you need help figuring out who to get in touch with at their office or how to get in touch." Hezekiah is a big, he's pushing the co-op movement, the cannabis co-op movement here in California with great success, actually. And I think 1710 is just an encouraging law that they're going to, literally it's a place marker. And it says,
so call, write, show up, let your electeds know that what you want in this bill.
That's exactly what it says. Yeah, it doesn't say anything.
In this future bill.
It doesn't say anything other than the fact that they're going to write a bill to
They're
help
going to work on
small
it, so you
businesses,
got to
right,
let them know what your small business needs or what you want to see.
in California.
In California. And I'm sure your locality will have a similar thing, because you can't leave small business behind, because it'll just force people into the unregulated market.
Yeah.
And if they really, really want to screw the unregulated market, they'll make it easy to be legal. Because
Absolutely.
What do they say? That most of the people who narc on the other people are people who've spent all their money and hard work, blood, sweat, and tears on getting legal.
Yeah, the number one group that wants crackdown, want that Newsom crackdown, which there's some discussion as to whether the local rep up in Humboldt County, the state rep up there, did a town hallish event, and basically said that he doesn't expect the camp program to be restarted up in the Emerald Triangle in Humboldt, and that the National Guard are going to be rolling in, and the Army is going to be there, but that they are going to be using National Guard for some fire prevention.
Oh, please!
But
I don't believe that for a second.
He doesn't expect there to be a bigger crackdown than it's already going on, and he made the. I believe the point that you made, that the people who really want the crackdown now, or they want enforcement.
Julie Love 101 tells us that everyone can grow 100 pounds no more per year if they want. Julie Love's in the zone in Humboldt.
That's the limit.
Mm-hmm.
Per your amount of however many plants. You have 6 plants, 100 pounds.
100 pounds, no more.
Interesting. 100 pounds in a year.
Start a co-op.
What's that work out to?
I don't know.
Start a co-op. Well, that's the thing,
Ernest Gaia is saying, build the governance docs for a co-op, start a co-op. Yeah, Hezekiah Allen totally supports.
That's what he's doing.
Building co-ops. He'll help you start a co-op.
That should be in the bill.
Website.
That should be in the bill. There should be co-op language in this bill.
I'm sure that that's going to be brought up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. Cool. So that's great. And Hezekiah is on the case. He's trimmed his beard, cut his hair, and has put on a suit to go lobby for and get the small businessman, business people, because there are many fabulous, amazing, small female-run, women-run businesses in this space that are being enveloped and overshadowed by much money and much corporate interest and people coming into this space. So we need to support them whenever we can too. So it's good news to see the small cannabis entrepreneur getting some love in California.
Getting a little nod, but really, if you're in California, you have to support this, and you have to call, show up if you're close by, call, email, write a note. I'm going to send a postcard that indicates my support for AB 1710 and kind of a couple things that I'm hoping that will happen. So, public pressure is a real thing. This is the public pressure about cannabis is on our side, y'all. So let's use that and leverage it and craft the world we want to see.
Very good. Yeah. 100 pounds per person, Jocelyn Russell asks, or is that per property?
Probably per property.
It's 6 plants per property.
Yeah.
In California, it used to be a per person limit in California, and that what they said was the big problem that people could.
Julie Love tells us that CAMP stands for Campaign Against Marijuana Planting.
Thanks, Julie Love.
Did I just say that?
I mentioned the CAMP program, and then someone asked, but thank you, Julie Love, for jumping in. That's right. Obviously, you are in the mix of it.
She is in it. Yeah.
Where it happened. That's right. The Campaign Against Marijuana Planting.
Military-style invasions.
Yep.
Pete, I understand that there's a lot of PTSD. I mean, these are families, people just supporting their lives, and taking care of business, and just getting.
Not that there aren't bad players, but there needs to be some discretion in what's going on when you a lot of it was what's going on now is just misinformation too. I mean, they're missing one farm over from the unlicensed farm to the licensed farm, and sometimes they'll just go in and clear it out, and they'll be, I'm sorry, you were a permanent farm? Oh, my apologies. I'm sorry. So Prohibition 2.0, guys. This is Prohibition 2.0. It's happening in Canada. Corporate players, law enforcement are getting into the game.
Former legislators who were railing against cannabis.
We see it every week. Howard Dean last week, Boehner, Antonio Villaraigosa is on the MedMen board. You name it. John Boehner in the open now. I'm all in on cannabis. He's in Acreage Holdings. Howard Dean is advising Tilray, the only company that's been approved by the DEA to import cannabis from Canada into the United States, into California to do trials in San Diego. We're importing cannabis medicine from Canada.
We'll get there.
So there you go, folks. Prohibition 2.0, the new reefer madness. As we go into the Western Bloc, thank you, Hezekiah Allen. Support AB 1710 coming up here in California.
And let's get those legislators to write a good bill to help small cannabis businesses get in the game.
Yeah.
Get in the game and get people out of the underground market. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of how long and how painful is it going to be for people to make this transition.
Yeah.
And we need tax holidays for these new states that are coming on. Come on, people.
Mm-hmm.
The federal law to SB S420 to throw a 15 or 20% excise tax out on federally? No, that is not going to keep people off of the unregulated market. Sorry. At least a federal tax holiday if you motherfuckers are going to put it. Sorry,
hey.
If you guys are going to put an excise tax on it at a federal level, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's nowhere near the way they tax alcohol and tobacco, which just got big tax breaks. And now they want to throw this huge excise tax on cannabis. No, sorry. No starter. Non-starter. Let's get into the West before I continue my rant.
Please.
The rant is what the people pay for.
Danky the Clown.
All right, Danky. Nice. Welcome, Danky. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining in. We're moving into the Western Bloc. We'll see you on the other side. This is a Reefer Revolution Live Afterburn. Subscribe. Get notifications. Thumbs up. This is a new broadcast. If you were in the chat before, I started a new broadcast because of the videos.
Here on 12 News.
So give it another thumbs up if you could. Jilly, thank you very much for catching up on that. And anybody else, that would be great. Greatly appreciated. Thanks for sharing and thumbs upping and all that good stuff. Here's the Western Bloc.
Here on 12 News, smoke at your own risk. Medical marijuana sold right here in Arizona can't be verified as safe.
Normally, before a pharmaceutical drug gets approved for people to use it, it has to be approved by the FDA. And that can take years. But when it comes to medical marijuana in Arizona, that's not the case. There is no law that regulates cannabis to be tested for safety.
As Team 12's Monica Garcia tells us, some of the contaminants found growing on the plant are quite unsettling. Listen.
Digging into the weeds of the 32 states where medical marijuana is legalized, Arizona is one of a few that does not require testing, meaning you really don't know what's in your marijuana.
We have to treat it like medicine, and for the last 8 or 9 years since it finally got rolled out, we have not been treating it that way.
Ryan Treacy from C4 Laboratories, a cannabis testing lab, says he's seen it all.
And we were seeing, very high levels of microbial contamination, very high levels of yeast and mold.
This plate, as you can see, is covered with growth. This is pretty gross looking. And this was just from a flower sample such as this.
Treacy says the majority of dispensaries in the valley voluntarily do get their product tested, but not to check for micro critters, rather to prove how high their product will get you.
I would say, 50-50 as to who does, potency and safety testing and who just does the potency side of the analyses.
Some species of yeast or mold, we can't tell at the moment. We need to do more tests on this.
It got to a point where we couldn't do anything about what we're seeing. Department of Health Services is not set up to receive any complaints like that.
Because it's not mandated in the legislation. Steve White, president of Arizona Dispensary Association, supports testing reform and is pushing for that to change.
We need to ensure that people understand that this is not a political party issue, right? That this is a public safety issue.
It truly is, because you're talking about people that if you have HIV, you have cancer, we can't be adding to the problems if we're not ensuring that it's free from chemicals.
Monica Garcia, 12 News.
Healthcare provider gives the green light on physicians recommending medical marijuana. Dr. Mark Breesacker, Intermountain Healthcare's chief physician executive, is here to explain how Intermountain is implementing since the Utah Medical Cannabis Act was passed back in December. So let's explain what happens. You basically tell physicians that you are okay to recommend medical cannabis.
That's correct. We took some time to understand the new law. We took some time to talk to patient advocates. And we also talked a lot to our physicians and really working to understand what does everyone need and how can we all work together. And so we're really pleased to be at this point.
I think on the advocacy end, a big sigh of relief that Intermountain got involved, because they didn't think, yes, we had a bill, but how was it going to be implemented? Would there really be a pathway for medicinal marijuana?
Yes, and when you talk to advocates and patients, you understand the journey they've been on, and it really helps you understand where they've been, and it's a compelling story. So we understand the law, we understand the benefits and risks associated with the law, and I think we're at the spot that we need to be at.
And Dr. Breesacker, you are in the pediatrician field, and you have seen medical marijuana work in children.
Yeah, so it has been shown to help for when kids have really bad seizure disorders, and I think anyone who's seen a child have a seizure knows how scary that can be, and so we've seen it help there, and there is a lot to learn about medical cannabis, and so we're looking forward to being part of that as well.
So walk us through a patient who has a qualifying condition. What do they do when they see the doctor?
So they should call their doctor that they have a relationship with, and they should have a conversation around what's best for me given my condition, and do we think together that this could help?
So both parties are in agreement. Then what happens? Is there a portal that this recommendation is filled out? What happens?
So we have built into our electronic health record a letter that meets all the requirements of the law, and so the physician or the nurse practitioner or physician assistant can fill that out, and it comes with some instructions that we give to patients as well, and then we give it to the patient.
And we have to remind folks that it is still illegal to actually buy the medical marijuana, so it's left to the patient to figure out what happens next, because it'll be another year or so before that is in place.
Yes, I think that the fine point there is that at the federal level, it is a Schedule I controlled substance, which means, yes, we're not supposed to use that. But in our research, what we learned is that there has not been any prosecution of a physician.
Because we're not the first state to implement this.
That's right. That's right. We're following others, and there's been an honoring of state law. So the risk isn't zero, but we feel it's low for physicians and nurse practitioners.
As you mentioned, there's so many risks in life. Surgery is one of them. You know, it's not zero, but the risk is low.
That's correct.
Okay, where can people find out more information and their first step?
I think there's a couple of places that I would go to. The first is the Department of Health, I know, is developing some information and resources, and of course there are several really good patient advocates groups, Utah Patients Coalition, Truce, and they certainly are able to help people.
Excellent. Dr. Breesacker with Intermountain Healthcare. More information, go to their website, intermountainhealthcare.org.
Idaho State Police may buy equipment that can test the difference between hemp and marijuana. The issue came to head in January when Idaho troopers seized an entire truckload of what they say is marijuana. The company shipping the product says that it was hemp, and they've sued. On Friday, Idaho lawmakers gave the okay for $240,000 for 3 testing devices for crime labs in Meridian, Pocatello, and Coeur d'Alene. The funding must ultimately be approved by the House and Senate.
California voters passed Proposition 64 back in 2016, legalizing marijuana use for adults and eliminating several pot-related crimes. Now, the state of California is working on identifying people who qualify to get their pot-related convictions dropped. One county in the Bay Area decided to jump in and get the process done themselves. So the question becomes, could that happen here in Kern County? 17's Amber Frias joining us now with the details. Amber?
Jim, this county is San Francisco County. They decided to get ahead of the rest of our state with the help of a nonprofit San Francisco tech company called Code for America. Now that pot is legal in our state, California prosecutors want to make sure people's pot-related charges are reevaluated. Last year, Governor Brown signed Assembly Bill 1793. The law mandates the state to compile a list of all Californians eligible to have their pot-related crimes reduced or dismissed under Prop 64 by July 1st. Under this bill, you can have a conviction dismissed or reduced if you were convicted of something that was a crime before Prop 64 passed, and now it is no longer one or is considered a lesser offense. Also, if the reduction does not pose an unreasonable risk of danger to public safety. Instead of waiting until the Department of Justice delivered the list, San Francisco County leaders developed their own list with the help of Code for America. The nonprofit tech company developed an algorithm that combed through the county's digitized criminal records that date back to 1975. Over 9,000 cases were found. San Francisco District Attorney George Gasco said this made part of his effort to reduce the impacts of criminal convictions in their community.
If you are the mom or dad that wants to participate in the kids' school activities and they're being told you can't go to that field trip because you have a felony conviction because you sold a nickel bag in the Tenderloin 10 years ago, that's the people that we care about.
Back here at home, I checked with the district attorney's office today and was told Kern County will wait to receive the list from the DOJ's office before taking any action. If you want to see a list of the charges that could be affected by this new legislation, head to our website, kget.com. Amber Frias, 17 News.
That didn't take long. Denver's second ever social marijuana club has closed after less than a month in business.
All right, so what was it? Was it location, the owners? Are people just not interested in spending their evening at a place where you can't buy pot, drink booze, or eat? Denver 7's Jason Grenauer reports.
We have to sell the entertainment, the experience, the socialness, the education, the fitness, the fun.
That was Vape and Play owner Megan Lumpkins a month ago, before Denver's second social pot establishment opened. Denver's second social pot establishment is now closed after just a few weeks. Vape and Play is temporarily closed and is now for sale, according to a statement from the owner. I spoke to her in person. She refused to add anything else.
This is our vape bar.
The business was based on ticketing and events, the owners told us in an earlier interview, since Vape and Play legally can't sell marijuana.
We also call ourselves as a cannabis entertainment and educational center.
That leaves just one licensed place for social pot, the Coffee Joint, not far from 8th and I-25.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for us because we welcome competition. We've won a competition, and I had no idea why they closed.
The coffee shop has been operational for a full year now, located next to her husband's dispensary.
We are helping dispensary to survive and to advertise, and this is one of the kind of a profitable ideas that we have.
The ordinance allowing social pot clubs has been around since 2016, yet the city says they've received only 5 applications. 2 opened, 1 now closed, 1 application is pending.
I think 2 things is the business model and the regulations are hard for any kind of business to follow.
So is it too soon to say social pot is a failed experiment?
Oh no, it's going to take off one way or the other.
In Denver, I'm Jason Grenauer, Denver 7.
Well, the city of L.A. has a new plan to crack down on illegal pot shops, turning off their lights and water. Kicking on his Tom Wade is live in Arleta, where unlicensed dispensaries are a big problem there. Tom?
Yeah, that's right, Jeff. And council members are just trying to get creative in stopping this problem. They say the problem of illegal dispensaries has gotten worse since recreational marijuana sales has become legal.
The illegal operators are not complying with any of the rules and regulations. They don't have the licenses.
LA Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez says it's time to crack down hard on illegal pot shops. She's pushing for an ordinance to allow authorities to shut off water and power to unlicensed dispensaries.
It's a common sense approach to making sure that we shut down the illegal activity was a priority.
At this stage, the council has only approved the drafting of an ordinance, but Rodriguez is optimistic the plan will ultimately go into effect. She says illegal pot sales in sections of her district of Sylmar are surging.
We were seeing the proliferation in areas in my district where we were seeing the illegal operators popping up in neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods where kids go to school or near other child care facilities where legal dispensaries are banned.
They seem to be there for a while and then they're not there.
Some folks who live and work in the area say action is needed, but opinions are mixed on a plan to shut down the illegal pot shops.
Obviously, laws are completely useless if we don't have a way of enforcing them. So clearly, if they're illegal, then we don't have good enough systems in place to enforce those laws. I'm not sure that just shutting off the utilities is going to help.
Just to give you a sense of how many dispensaries that are operating illegally have been shut down, in the past 12 months, just here in the northeast San Fernando Valley, 24 illegal dispensaries have been shut down. That's just in this area. Reporting live in Arleta, I'm Tom Wade, KCAL 9 News.
Dozens shut down. There's a few of them out there. They popped up pretty quick throughout the decades under cannabis medical and the quasi-legal state here in California. So it's going to be it's been growing pains here in California, also with consumption lounges, which are coming hot and heavy to California soon. West Hollywood, looking forward to going to those.
Yeah.
As soon as they start popping up,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to hopefully do it right.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe, I think, was a bad business plan in Colorado.
Yeah, they were probably paying way too much in rent.
Yeah.
You know, we know what that's like.
There's one of those
I'm
game.
just saying.
I think there's a game one in Vancouver that's doing very well.
Dude, they might have been able to do poetry slams every night for a $5 cover. Made a little more money.
They made a little more money. Yeah.
They couldn't sell soup or anything. That's lame.
Nothing. They can't do nothing. The rules. So
They
those
should have
rules
had
got
a
to change.
stage or something.
We got to make the rules right, man. We got to make the rules right, people. We got to change things. We got to pass good bills that are going to help small businesses in California. We got to make sure that where it's happening in states like Illinois and Florida, and where they're in Vermont, where they're now bringing on tax and regulate, we got to maybe convince some of these states that taxing, maybe you need lower taxes to start with, or no taxes to start with, to get people out of the underground market. It's not business as usual. It's not like you're just giving people, it's not, they think it's like you give people, okay, what's legal now? There you go. Start paying your taxes. Let's start making all of our money. Let's go. Get out of the black market. Stop buying from your guy for $100 an ounce.
No.
In California.
Sorry.
And other places. So we hear. And then, give us our money to fill our potholes, fix our subways, fix our schools, maybe, if it goes into their general fund. Definitely figure out a way to arrest people for driving under the influence of chronic cannabis use, or even one-time cannabis use. I'd much rather drive with a chronic cannabis user than I would for the first-time cannabis user.
Oh my goodness, no.
So how you gonna figure that out? Observation. It's what you cops are supposed to do.
You're trained in seeing.
Trained in seeing
I'm
things.
excited about learning more about mushrooms.
Yes,
Thank you for turning me on to that. I was a little resistant.
I want to recommend, folks are asking about RBU 8314. But yes, I highly recommend you go to the Joe Rogan Experience and watch the entire 3-hour conversation with Paul Stamets.
It's pretty great.
You will learn about mushrooms like you wouldn't, more than you want to know about mushrooms. But boy, what an education. What an amazing, amazing creature fungus is here on this planet. And we did apparently break off from the fungus before the plants even, and in our evolution. And they went one way, putting all of their organs on the outside, and we went the other way, putting all of our organs on the inside. They breathe oxygen and give out carbon dioxide, and they eat petroleum and turn it into clean dirt. They're an amazing, amazing thing. So yeah, check out that Paul Stamets, Joe Rogan. Lots of good mushrooms. I take lion's mane. I take turkey tail. I take lion's mane, and I take his company's immune support 7 mushroom blend. And then a stack other things, which you can hear about in that podcast. But it's been a great show, guys. Great Sunday.
We haven't said one thing.
Yes. Tomatoes.
Tomatoes. That's
Sort of.
exactly what I was saying. That's exactly what I was going to say.
I saw it in the chat.
Yeah, tax stacks make cannabis like tomatoes. Ernest of Gaia. I could not agree more. So we all strive for tomatoes. May tomatoes reign and legalize marinara. Free the plant, free the people, and cannabis helps dementia.
Are you trying to wrap it up because it's 7:30?
It's time.
It's time.
You were wrapping it up.
I was wrapping it up, but you ran through all of our taglines.
Sorry, I wanted to notice that Ernest of Gaia said tomatoes.
Bill McKibben has a book on psychotropics.
Ooh.
Or is that Palin you're talking about? McKibben, he's the environmentalist guy, right?
Yeah.
360? Is that true? I'd love to read his book. But yeah,
cool.
I want to read Poland's book on psychedelics too.
I want to read Pauline's book.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that.
The hero's journey is an intriguing thing. Mushrooms are amazing. Cannabis is amazing. And we talk about cannabis every week here on Reefer Revolution Live in the afterburn as well is in our first hour starting at 4:20. So join us here next week, guys. We thank you very much. It's been a great show. Lots of new folks in the chat, new viewers. Folks that have been here from the very beginning. Our audience is growing. It's expanding. Please share our channel with your friends who want to know about cannabis, get educated, find out about what's going on in the space across the country, the news in your neighborhood, in your area of the country, the cannabis news that's happening in your state. We want to know about it. We want to take action. We're taking action this week with the FDA, who wants to know about rescheduling. The Trump administration says, hey, we got to make some recommendations to the UN. So why don't you tell us what we should do about cannabis rescheduling?
Yes.
So the link is in the description. We're going to talk about your comments next week.
Or you can write your own postcards.
Write your own postcard.
Letters. The address is in the link also.
We love that. They love postcards. They love handwritten letters. But certainly, let's get those comments up.
Yes, let's get them up. I hope to see at least 264 by next week.
And if you want to share your comments, if you do make a comment you want to share with us, and we'll talk same next week.
That'd be great.
Comment, drop us a link at dc420la at gmail.com and to link to your comment, and we'll show it and read it on the air. And that'll be next week, guys. Join us next week for Reefer Revolution Live at 4:20 Pacific. Give us a thumbs up, share, tell your friends. Become a patron if you're so inclined for $1. We're gonna put up some more exclusive Patreon footage in the coming week or so, and lots of stuff going on in our world. Lots of exciting things, and eager for more. Eager to see you guys next week. Thanks for joining in today. Free the plant, free the people. Pot for peace. Feel the afterburn meme. I think it's a great contest. The Feel the Afterburn meme.
Cool.
Oh, I thought I had the music ready.
Well, thanks, everybody. Cannabis helps dementia. Check out the Forbes article. Tell all your friends.
Yes, cannabis helps dementia.
Murderers keep murdering, the churches keep a-burning, the rapists keep a-raping, and the tide ain't turning. Uncle Sam, for all your power, things get worse every hour. It seems to me your energy's all wasted, chasing my friends and me. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. The terrorists keep terrorizing, our leaders keep a-lying, the haters keep a-hating, and the planet's dying. Do what's proper, call off your dogs and your helicopters. The problems of society were not caused by my friends and me. So hey, Uncle Sam, hey there, Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. How many innocent people gonna be imprisoned? We just peace and love and street pop and brotherhood freaks. A touch of Mother Nature never made nobody violent, never made nobody hate, nobody will break nobody's peace. It's never been shown to be harmful. Don't you tell me no lies with your caffeine, codeine, nicotine eyes. The cannabis ban is just recent, just since 1938 to re-legalize it, realize it. You made a big mistake. Hey, Uncle Sam, hey there, Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone.
drug is dangerous. You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Yes, I'm all in. This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
This drug is dangerous. You cannot play with it. It's not funny.
Some of you may become somewhat uncomfortable as parts of this film unfold. If you listen carefully,
Happy
you
Women's
will agree
Month.
that the concepts will contribute to the
I
rise of
requested
a
this
mature
song, by
person.
the way.
They shut us down. They can shut us down now.
Responsible attitude toward
Everybody.
sexual side of his life.
It's International Women's Day, March 8th.
Does your vagina have a brand? Let your vagina start a band. If your vagina lands in prison, then the world is gonna listen. My vagina is tough and dangerous, shaking up the major labels. Vagina gonna take the stage, 'cause vagina got a lot to say. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from. Vagina's gonna win the race. Vagina gonna play in space. Vagina gonna top the charts. Vaginas fill your shopping carts. Vaginas in the art museum, and people buying tickets just to see them. Put your pussy on a diet, then paparazzi gonna start a riot. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vaginas where you're really from. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vaginas where you're really from. V-A-G-I-N-A, we got pussy for days. Back up, pussy don't play. First they come and then they stay. You gon' always go and find it when you need it. You gon' always come back and repeat it. Oh, 'cause you know where home is. Go down like you know what dome is. Whoa now, man, I'm losing focus. But JJ on hocus pocus. Don't act like you don't know this. Girls running like US Open. Throw a fit right now. Put up a fist right now. 'Cause you the shit right now. I'm probably acting like a bitch right now. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from. My pussy is sweet just like a cookie. It goes to work, it makes the beats. It's CEO, no rookie. From senator to bookie, we run this shit, go looky. You could turn any page, any race, any age. From Russia to the States, we tearing up the place. I rip shit like Sinead O'Connor. I wear my badge as a badge of honor. I take pride in the way we rise. One love to Maya Angelou, the if we're wonder. How we do it all, sometimes I wonder. I could play nice so I could bring that thunder. So sad I gotta end right here, but this vagina gotta go make them numbers. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from. Don't play stupid, don't play dumb. Vagina's where you're really from.
This is how we all came into the world.
That's not all you go out with girls for, is it? Going out with girls is fun. When you get older, you probably want to get married and start a family.